Chapter 1162. Xiang Lin seriously recalled for a moment before replying, "My lord, in the first month, his ocular powers grew by a large margin, and there were changes almost every day. After that, this increase began to slowly slow down. In the last week or two, I could no longer feel his ocular powers growing." Hyojin nodded. Xiang Li had a perception secret skill called Kagura's Mind Eye. Under her careful observation, most of the changes in Sasuke's pupil power would not be able to hide from her, so her report was trustworthy. From Xiang Lin's report, it was obvious that Sasuke's fusion with his pupil powers was almost complete. "Looks like it's much faster than expected." According to the degree of pupillary power consumption of the 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan before the operation, Kuroto predicted that it may take 3 to 4 months for Sasuke to complete the fusion of pupillary power. But now, it seems that in just over 2 months, Sasuke is about to complete the fusion of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Then, Hyojin added, he then asked Gaara, "How's the cultivation of the magnetic escape going?" With a guilty expression on his face, Gaara said in slight embarrassment, "I'm sorry. I haven't mastered the magnetic escape technique yet." Hyojin smiled and comforted, "It's only been 2 months. You don't have to feel too burdened." For ordinary ninjas, the development of Kekkei Genkai is extremely difficult. For example, second-generation Naruto, who has developed countless secret and forbidden techniques in his life, has not been able to master his brother's would release. Third-generation Naruto, who is known as the Doctor of Ninjutsu, has also not been able to develop any Kekkei Genkai. Moreover, among all the blood limit boundaries, the difficulty of cultivating the magnetic escape is one of the highest. No matter how talented I, Ayler, am, it is unrealistic for me to master the magnetic escape in just 2 months. It could be said that if Hyojin did not accidentally obtain the wind escape clone that showed signs of atavism, he would not have been able to master the magnetic escape so easily. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin ordered, "Arao, come with me." After saying that, Hyojin led Galo back to the laboratory. In the lab, Hyojin said to Gaara, "Magnet release is a fusion of the wind element chakra and the lightning element chakra. These 2 elements of chakra are unstable in form and very difficult to control. If you were to figure it out yourself, you might need a lot of time to make mistakes bit by bit. That's why I'm borrowing your body to demonstrate it to you so that you can feel it." Yes, Gaara knew about Hyojin's abilities, so he didn't need Hyojin to explain any further and took the initiative to relax. At this time, Hyojin quickly printed hand seals and immediately used soul descent technique to enter Gaara's body. Because Gaara took the initiative to relax his mind and body without the slightest resistance, Hyojin easily took over Gaara's body and felt the flow of chakra in his body. Gaara's body is undoubtedly very suitable for practicing magnet release. This is not only because he is a Jinchuriki, but also because his father, 4 generations of Kazekage, was a Kekkei Genkai ninja, so his body contains the bloodline to practice magnet release. It's just that magnet release is very difficult to master, so even if one has the bloodline to practice magnet release, the number of ninjas who can truly master magnet release is very rare. For example, Gaara's brother and sister, Shoju and Kankuro, have not been able to master their father's magnet release. After familiarizing himself with Gaara's body and Gaara's chakra characteristics, Hyojin used his rich experience in using magnet release and began to experiment with magnet release. With a series of rapid hand seals, Hyojin, who was controlling Gaara's body, suddenly stretched out his right hand towards a row of surgical instruments on the distant operating table. In an instant, the surgical instruments on the tray issued a series of ding-ding-dang-dang sounds. Success! The corner of Hyojin's mouth rose. There is no doubt that his first attempt to control Gaara's body has achieved very good results. Although he was unable to absorb the metal instruments on the tray with magnet release chakra, he still succeeded in affecting the metal instrument. It must be known that not every magnet release ninja can use magnet release on a large scale like the 3 generations of Kazekage and 4 generations of Kazekage. There was a magnet release ninja named Troy who could only attach magnet release chakra to a shuriken and control the shuriken through magnetism. Hyojin being able to do this on his first attempt is already very amazing. After a few more attempts, Hyojin successfully controlled the various metal instruments in the operating room and asked Gaara, "Do you feel it?" Gaara's consciousness replied, "Well, I seem to understand a little bit." Hearing this, Hyojin withdrew from Gaara's body and returned to his release body. The key to magnet release lies in the mutual stimulation of wind chakra and lightning chakra. How to do it, how to maintain it, I have already demonstrated it to you just now, the rest is up to you to comprehend it yourself. Hyojin, who has the soul descent technique, can be said to be the best teacher in the current shinobi world, because he can directly enter the body of a student and achieve the true meaning of teaching by example, and this kind of physical teaching is much more efficient than teaching in the classroom or on the practice field. Of course, this kind of teaching will also stifle the student's ability to explore and make independent judgments, so it can't be abused. After sending Gaara back to his room to practice on his own, Hyojin thought for a while and put his soul into the water clone that performed the transplant operation on Sasuke, and then walked towards Sasuke's room. Originally, Kuroda was going to be busy with other things, but now that he found that Sasuke's pupil fusion has entered the final stage, he naturally has to go and take a look. After a while, Hyojin arrived at Sasuke's living area. Sasuke, who was lying on the bed, heard the footsteps approaching and quickly came out to greet them. "Who is it?" Hyojin said, "It's me." Faintly responding, Sasuke couldn't hide the disappointment on his face. Actually, there was no need for Hyojin to answer. Sasuke should have sensed the chakra fluctuations on Hyojin's body and knew that the person who had come was the God's organization, Suijin, who had performed the transplant operation on him. As Hyojin picked up Sasuke's notebook, he said casually, "You seem a little disappointed." Sasuke asked, "It's been more than 2 months. Why hasn't Sensei come to see me even once?" "She's out on a mission." After casually brushing off Sasuke, Hyojin seriously looked at Sasuke's diary for the past 2 months. "Here's the second update. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to all the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you, everyone." Chapter 1163. As Hyojin expected, Sasuke obediently recorded the feelings of the ocular fusion in the past 2 months in detail, even including many doubts and speculations about the process of ocular fusion. Looking through the diary, Hyojin's expression gradually became solemn. From Sasuke's diary, it is obvious that the ocular fusion between the Manjikyu Sharingan has many similarities with gene fusion. I'm afraid that this is the reason why it can only be done by blood relatives. After a pause, Hyojin continued, "Although this method is primitive, it is indeed the simplest way to sublimate the bloodline. There is no doubt that this method of transplanting the Manjikyu Sharingan between blood relatives is not only the fusion of ocular power, but also the fusion of bloodline. This is a method of bloodline fusion to trace back the bloodline of the Otsutsuki clan, which has been diluted over the generations, so that the bloodline of the fused person is closer to the ancestor. In other words, even if the fusion of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, which is the peak power of the shinobi world, is successful, it only regains part of the ancestor's power." Sasuke asked at this time, "When can I remove the bandage?" Hyojin continued to read Sasuke's diary and replied, "As long as the fusion of ocular power is completed, you can naturally remove the bandage, you don't need to ask me." Sasuke said, "In the last 2 weeks, the growth of the ocular power has begun to slow down. Does this mean that I am about to succeed?" "What did you say?" Hyojin glanced at Sasuke in surprise. Xiangli just reported to him that Sasuke's ocular power has not increased in the last 2 weeks, but Sasuke said that the growth of the ocular power has only slowed down recently. This is obviously a misjudgment. Sasuke crossed his arms and said proudly, I know that some of you have been secretly spying on me, but I am not the same as before. Do you think I will not notice such spying? You found out. Kuroto didn't care about it and just smiled. Kuroto had some doubts before. Sasuke's pupil fusion has already been completed, so why hasn't the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan been completed? Only now did he realize that this kid was just pretending. This was most likely because Xiang Lin didn't view Sasuke as an enemy after he brought him back to the Sky Fortress. That was why he didn't conceal his presence when he tried to sense Xiang Lin's presence. As Sasuke's ocular powers fused with Xiang Lin's, his senses naturally increased by a lot. That was why he was able to detect Xiang Lin's prying and disguise himself accordingly to deceive Xiang Lin's senses. Closing Sasuke's diary, Hyojin speculated, if this is the case, the fusion of the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan may be completed within a week. 1 more week? Sasuke frowned. Being blind for more than 2 months had worn down much of his patience. Seeing Sasuke's impatience, Hyojin said, there's only one last step left. I guess you don't want to make any mistakes at this last moment, right? Sasuke gently nodded. I understand. Hyojin immediately turned around and walked out. As he walked, he said, I'll come back in a week for the final inspection. If there are no problems, you can return to my. Sasuke didn't say anything. He silently lay back on the bed and continued to wait patiently. In the following week, because Sasuke could complete the fusion of the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan at any time, Hyojin didn't leave the Sky Fortress again. Instead, he focused on practicing the Hashiman dungeon in the training field of the Sky Fortress. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With the rapid flashing of the figure, a lot of air waves were generated in the training field out of thin air. These air waves overlapped and spread around like a storm. If it weren't for the sealing techniques engraved on the 4 walls of the training field, ordinary brick walls might not be able to withstand these layers of air wave. After a long time, the figure slowed down and revealed the appearance of Hyojin. Phew! After a light breath, Hyojin, who was sweating profusely, replenished his water while thinking about how to optimize the training method. Now that all 6 clones needed for the ceremony had been cloned and developed, the only thing left was to fill the Ein seal of the Ein body with chakra and cultivate the Hashiman dungeon to the highest realm so that he could burst out all his potential in the ceremony. Then, he could officially start the ceremony. And the previous intermittent training had allowed him to cultivate the 6th gate of the Hashiman dungeon, the Gate of View, so now he was trying to break through the 7th gate, the Gate of Wonder. Practicing the Hashiman dungeon, a secret technique of the Iron Fist school, the stronger the physique, the better the foundation of physical techniques, and the more understanding of the human body structure, the less difficult it would be to practice. Coincidentally, he had all 3 of these points. The current Hyojin's physique was no longer what it used to be. In addition, he also cultivated the secret technique of Ein seal that could maintain the vitality of the body. So even if he was not as good as Nagato's physique, his physique was far better than the average ninja in the ninja world. He was a rare character. Not to mention physical techniques, in this aspect, Hyojin had never slacked off, and he didn't have any sectarian bias in his heart. Whether it was soft fist, iron fist, or even some swordsmanship, sword techniques, and other schools of ninjutsu, he more or less dabbled in all of them. He could be regarded as a master of ninjutsu in the ninja world. As for the human body structure, in the current ninja world, except for Orochimaru who dared to transform his own human body, he may be slightly stronger than Hyojin. Perhaps even Tsunade Hime, the #1 medical ninjutsu, can't compare with Hyojin in this aspect. In fact, if he hadn't been busy developing clones over the years, he might have already conquered the Hashiman dungeon. And now he only needs to conquer the 7th gate of the Hashiman dungeon, the Gate of Wonder, because once he masters the 7th gate, the Hashiman dungeon can basically be declared to have been conquered. After all, the 8th gate, the Gate of Death, belongs to the taboo of death. Before actually opening the Gate of Death, no one can say for sure whether they can open this checkpoint of burning their life, so there is no such thing as practicing opening the Gate of Death in the practice field. Under normal circumstances, once a cultivator conquers the 7th gate, the Gate of Wonder, they have the ability to break through the 8th gate, the Gate of Death. As for whether or not they can successfully open the 8th gate, it depends on whether the cultivator's foundation is solid enough, and whether or not their willpower is strong enough. Like Dai and Metke, they have trained their bodies to the extreme over the years, so they have the confidence and ability to open the final gate of death. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1164. Bang! With a low muffled sound, the huge black iron sand shield seemed to explode from the inside. The entire shield exploded, and the fine black iron sand splattered all over the field. At this time, Hyojin's figure flashed, and he retracted his fist while gasping for breath. At the same time, the mist that lingered around his body, which was a mixture of sweat and chakra, also began to dissipate as he stopped moving. After a while, Hyojin's face darkened as he caught his breath. Still lacking a little, the 6th gate, view gate, and the 7th gate, alarm gate, seemed to be separated by only one gate, but in fact, the difference between the two was huge. It could be said to be an invisible threshold in the 8 inner hidden gate. Hyojin had mastered the 6th gate, view gate, for a while, but every time he tried to break through the 7th gate, alarm gate, he always seemed to be lacking something, causing him to fail at the last moment. Is it because my foundation is not enough or I lack some kind of technique? Hyojin thought to himself. After becoming Naruto, he could access any information in Mai's archive, so he had secretly copied a copy of the secret technique scroll of the 8 inner hidden gate. Therefore, he did not ask Guy for any additional training after that. In his opinion, he was a body technique master, and he had the secret technique scroll of the 8 inner hidden gates, so there should be no obstacles for him to practice the 8 inner hidden gates on his own. The result was just as he expected. After that, the training went smoothly. Even if it was only intermittent training, he successfully opened the 6th gate, view gate. However, the 7th gate, alarm gate, seemed to be a little special. He tried various methods, but he could not break through. Realizing that he did not have much chakra left, Hyojin slowly walked to a cubicle on the side of the training field that looked like a locker room. He took off his clothes and slowly opened his arms. In an instant, the Type 3 biological armor he placed in the compartment automatically covered his body. In order to avoid the dilemma of not having a spare replacement after Xiang Yu's Type 3 biological armor was overloaded and scrapped, Hyojin conveniently created 4 brand new Type 3 biological armors when he was developing the Yang Escape clones. 2 of them were given to Xiangli, and he kept the other 2 for himself. The Type 3 biological armor that he had modified did not only have the ability to isolate perception, but its own chakra supply ability had also been greatly improved. It was equivalent to an external chakra battery. During this time, not only was Hyojin diligently practicing the 8 inner hidden gates, but he was also constantly pouring chakra into the Yin seal between his eyebrows. Therefore, he was severely lacking in chakra. Therefore, when he wasn't practicing, he would use the Type 3 biological armor to quickly restore chakra. This way, he could speed up the process of filling up the Yin seal and maintain his stamina to break through the 7th gate of wonder for a longer period of time. Of course, this was not without a price. For a long time, the high-intensity chakra supply would quickly make the cell tissues of the Type 3 biological armor lose their activity. Therefore, Hyojin had to spend a lot of nutrient solution to warm the Type 3 biological armor and use the 2 sets of Type 3 biological armor in turn to ensure that the Type 3 biological armor would not be overloaded and scrapped. Consuming a lot of expensive nutrient solution, although it was very extravagant, if it could save time, it was worth it for Hyojin. After putting on the Type 3 biological armor, Hyojin did not waste any time. He directly walked out of the compartment and ordered the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets in the practice field, continue. After receiving Hyojin's order, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets immediately launched the magnetic release and gathered the scattered black iron sand again, forming a huge black iron shield with a length and width of 4 meters and a thickness of 2 meters. In the face of this black iron shield that had been reinforced by the magnetic release chakra, Hyojin took a deep breath and instantly opened the 8 inner hidden gates and opened the 6th gate of view to his limit. Then, his entire body was wrapped in a wave of air and slammed into the black iron shield. Bang! There was another low muffled sound, and the black iron shield shattered. But in the blink of an eye, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets once again launched the magnetic release, gathering the scattered black iron sand together and recondensing it into a huge black iron shield. For Sandame Kazekage's puppet, such a simple magnet release actually doesn't consume much chakra, because he doesn't need any extra control at all. As long as the black iron sand is gathered using the characteristics of magnet release, it will be fine. Bang bang bang. Soon, muffled sounds reverberated in the practice field. The black iron giant shield was constantly recovering, but it was constantly being smashed by Suijin, and the cycle continued. On the sidelines, Xiang Lin and Gara were dumbfounded. Xiang Lin said, "Does Lord usually train like this? This is too exaggerated." This kind of high-intensity squeezing out every ounce of strength in the body was difficult to do even for a ninja with extraordinary perseverance like Akai, let alone a girl like Xiang Lin. My Ailer was also shocked. He thought that he had worked hard enough when he was cultivating, but compared to Hyojin, he found that his efforts were nothing at all. Hyojin did not care about the shock of Xiang Lin and Gara on the sidelines. At this time, his mind was completely immersed in attacking the 7th gate of wonder. In the continuous attack, his momentum and chakra were gradually rising. He could even feel the blood in his body beginning to boil, and the wonder gate in his lower abdomen showed signs of loosening, as if it could be broken in an instant with a little more force. Am I going to succeed? With joy in his heart, Hyojin no longer held back, and his whole body and mind exploded. With Hyojin's full strength, Xiang Lin and Gara on the sidelines were shocked to find that the speed at which the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets condensed the black iron shield gradually could not keep up with the speed at which Hyojin destroyed it. As soon as the huge black iron shield was formed, it was instantly destroyed by Hyojin, who had already turned into an afterimage. After realizing this, Gara hurriedly leaped into the training field and pressed both of his hands onto the training field's floor. He shouted, "Crane guard shield!" In an instant, quicksand surged, and a small sand guard crane appeared in the training field with its arms open. This was Gara's current strongest defensive ninjutsu, the crane guard shield. Bang! That this time, an afterimage flashed by, followed by a low muffled sound. The surprise on Gara's face had just appeared, and before it could even spread, the crane guard shield not far in front of him suddenly exploded, turning into a cloud of flying sand. The second update is here. It's going to be a new week soon, and the leaderboard will be updated. I implore everyone to recommend and support it. It's no trouble at all. Thank you. Also, thank you to all the students who donated today, thank you. Chapter 1165. Boom! A huge wave of air swept across the entire training ground in an instant. Not only was Gara's crane guard shield instantly shattered, but even the reinforced floor in the training ground was also lifted in pieces. In the blink of an eye, it was a mess. In Sasuke's living area. What happened? With a violent shake, Sasuke, who was lying on the bed waiting for the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to be born, suddenly sat up, his face full of surprise. The living area he was in was separated from the training ground where Hyojin was located by more than a dozen areas, and there was an inexplicable sealing technique in the middle. But even so, the shock wave caused by Hyojin in the training ground still affected his living area. In the training ground. Huff! Huff! Hyojin gasped for breath. Realizing that something was wrong, he stopped and deactivated the 8 inner hidden gate. In the last round of eruption just now, he still did not succeed in opening the 7th gate, the shock gate. For some reason, every time he was at the last step, he was always a little short. If he continued to erupt, not only would his body not be able to bear it, but the training ground would also not be able to withstand it, so he rationally stopped. Allowing the Type 3 biological armor on his body to replenish his chakra, Hyojin glanced at the messy training ground in front of him while analyzing the reason for the failure in his heart. Where did it go wrong? The 8 inner hidden gates was the profound meaning of the Iron Fist style. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any overly delicate technique. Moreover, he had studied the secret technique scrolls of the 8 inner hidden gates many times, and there was no relevant content in this area. Is it just because the foundation is not enough? Hyojin was a little uncertain for a moment. At this moment, Xiang Lin, who was standing on the sidelines, suddenly shouted, "Sir, Uchiha Sasuke left his activity area without permission." What? Hyojin frowned in the field. Xiang Li sensed a little more and continued, and his aura suddenly became much colder. His chakra gave me a very ominous feeling. It seems that the fusion of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan has been completed. Hyojin was certain in his heart. With a flash, he disappeared from the training ground. At the same time, Sasuke, who had removed the bandage around his eyes, was strolling through one of the passages of the Sky Fortress. Touching the stone bricks on the wall, he looked doubtful. This building seems to be bigger than I thought. Is it a castle on the moon? Then what was that shock just now? Swish, suddenly, a figure blocked in front of Sasuke. Sasuke stopped in his tracks. River Lord? Obviously, the figure who stopped Sasuke was not a bystander. It was Hyojin, who had temporarily changed his water release clone. At this time, he stared at Sasuke's eyes and said coldly, "Who allowed you to leave the activity area without permission?" Sasuke explained, "I just felt a violent shock and thought that something had happened here. Plus, my eternal Manjikyu Sharingan has been completed, so I came out." After saying that, Sasuke opened his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. In an instant, the ink-colored eyes in his eye sockets instantly turned scarlet, and in the center of the scarlet eyes, there was a complex pattern of a hexagram and a 3-edged shuriken intertwined together. Staring at the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets, Hyojin carefully observed it and found that the pattern of this pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan was similar to Sasuke's in the original space and time, but there were some subtle differences. Using his father's pair of Manjikyu Sharingan to fuse with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan doesn't affect him much. After thinking about it, Hyojin said to Sasuke, "The shock just now was caused by a member of our organization accidentally practicing taijutsu in the practice field. You don't have to worry too much about it." Sasuke asked eagerly, "Is it sensei?" "No, Uchiha Yen is out on a mission. He is not at the base." Shaking his head, Hyojin continued, "Go back to your living area first. I want to check your Sharingan in detail." Sasuke nodded with some disappointment, then glanced in the direction of the shock just now. He was secretly shocked. The shock just now was so violent it was actually caused by taijutsu. What a terrifying taijutsu! It seems that Amatsukami really has a lot of strong people in addition to sensei. After escorting Sasuke back to the living area, Hyojin checked Sasuke's new Manjikyu Sharingan and asked, "What kind of pupil technique is it?" After a slight hesitation, Sasuke replied, "It's still Amaterasu and Earth Life Enhancement." Hyojin nodded. This is within his expectations. After all, Sasuke is not a Genjutsu-type Uchiha. The probability of the new Manjikyu Sharingan inheriting his father's Genjutsu pupil technique is very small. Sasuke asked at this time, "By the way, didn't you tell me before that the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan can continue to evolve into Rinnegan? Now that I have the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, can you tell me the method to evolve the Rinnegan?" Kuroto said, "The acquisition of every bit of power comes with a price. Now is not the time to talk about the Rinnegan. You should first familiarize yourself with the Manjikyu Sharingan. When you completely master the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan and can freely use the merged pupil power, then we can talk about the Rinnegan again." Kuroto nodded. Sasuke thought for a while and gently nodded. "Well, you are right." In his opinion, even a powerful ninja like Sensei Uchiha hasn't touched the Rinnegan yet, and now that he has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it is indeed too early for him to ask for the Rinnegan. At this time, Hyojin also completed the examination of Sasuke's body. "There is no problem with your body, and the new eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is also normal. You can return to my..." Sasuke hurriedly asked, "Shuguru-sama, can I see Sensei before I return to the village?" Hyojin was a little curious. "Why do you want to see her?" Sasuke said with a little embarrassment, "I just want to tell Sensei in person that I have succeeded. I now have a powerful pupil power that is above the Manjikyu Sharingan." Hyojin was speechless. That's it? He found that Sasuke was a little strange. When he was controlling the fire avatar, he didn't show any mercy and beat this brat up like a punching bag. He didn't know why this brat was so respectful to him when he was controlling the fire avatar. Sasuke nodded with an expectant look on his face. Hyojin said casually, "Oh, she already knows. The first update is here. Please recommend me on Monday, please." Chapter 1166. The next day, Hyojin once again drove the water release clone to Sasuke's living quarters and asked, "Have you packed your luggage?" Sasuke, who was carrying a backpack, nodded his head first and then opened his mouth, as if he wanted to ask something. But just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, he held them back, and his eyes were a little absent-minded. Hyojin immediately took out the gloves that he promised to give to Sasuke and casually threw them to Sasuke. "This is a gift from Sensei?" Sasuke received the gloves with a look of surprise. Hyojin asked, "It's just a pair of gloves, is there a need to be so happy?" Sasuke lightly stroked the gloves without explaining anything. After a while, he slowly put on the gloves, and his expression became gloomy again. He thought to himself, "Why didn't Sensei give it to me himself? Is it because I'm not strong enough, so he doesn't want to see me?" Seeing Sasuke put on the gloves directly, the corner of Hyojin's eyes under the mask twitched. This kid is really arrogant. He didn't even get burned. Why did he wear gloves for no reason? It's not even convenient to make hand seals. Immediately, Hyojin was too lazy to think too much about it. He handed a mask without any holes to Sasuke and urged, "Put this on, I'll take you away now." Sasuke absent-mindedly took the mask full of sealing techniques, pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Your Excellency, I want to join Amatsukami." Hyojin was startled for a moment. Sasuke said, "Now that I have the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, I should be qualified to join Amatsukami, right?" Looking at Sasuke from head to toe, Hyojin smiled and asked, "Why do you suddenly want to join Amatsukami? You seemed to be very against Amatsukami before, right?" If I want to obtain the Rinnegan in the future, I can't leave Amatsukami, so I think I might as well join you directly." After a pause, Sasuke seemed to have thought of another reason and hurriedly said, "And if I join you, our Uchiha clan will be considered a part of Amatsukami, and the clan's safety will be guaranteed in the future." "Yes, that's what I was thinking." Suijin was a little surprised when he heard Kuroto's words. "Huh? Can the fusion of pupillary powers also increase intelligence? How come Sasuke seems to have become more shrewd? He even knows how to win over allies. This is not like his character. However, since Sasuke had volunteered to join Amatsukami, Hyojin naturally wouldn't reject him. After all, Hyojin had done so much for him, and it was all for the sake of getting him to join Amatsukami, who would most likely become a six-path elite in the future. After weighing the pros and cons for a while, Suijin took out a set of Homusubi uniform from the ninja bag on his waist and handed it to Sasuke. With your current strength, you are indeed qualified to join Amatsukami, but to become an official member, you still have to pass the internal assessment of the organization. Looking at the Balrog's black cloak and flame mask that Hyojin handed to him, Sasuke asked curiously, "Why do you have Sensei's equipment?" Hyojin was speechless. Immediately, Kuroto took out a mask with a gale pattern and a lightning pattern from his ninja bag and casually said, "I'm in charge of logistics in the organization, these are spare equipment." Sasuke looked relieved, and then he carefully looked at the cloak and mask in his hand and asked, "So that's how it is? Then, is my code name in the organization the same as Sensei's, Balrog?" Hyojin nodded. "Yes, your code name is also Balrog, but you are not an official member yet. Before the organization gives you a mission, you are not allowed to wear the Balrog's equipment, and you are not allowed to act on behalf of the organization." Sasuke put away the cloak and mask and said, "I'm ready to take the assessment at any time. At present, the organization does not need you to perform any assessment mission, you should return to Mai and wait for the news." After a pause, Hyojin urged again, "Put on the mask, I'll send you away." Holding the previous mask without holes and full of sealing techniques, Sasuke was a little puzzled. "I've already joined the organization, why do I still need to wear this mask?" Hyojin said, "Don't forget, you are not an official member yet." At this critical moment, Hyojin obviously won't easily reveal the secret of the Sky Fortress, so whether Sasuke joined Amatsukami or not, he must strictly keep the secret of the Sky Fortress from Sasuke. The mask he gave to Sasuke was carefully prepared by Hyojin yesterday. The sealing technique on it can not only isolate the inside of pupillary jutsu, but also has a certain effect of interfering with perception. As long as Sasuke wears it, even if Sasuke has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it will still be impossible for him to see the real situation inside the Sky Fortress through the mask. Sasuke didn't doubt Hyojin's words and put on the mask honestly, then followed Hyojin all the way out of the Sky Fortress. After a long time, Hyojin took Sasuke to a small island a few hundred miles away from the Sky Fortress, and there is a fixed passenger ship route passing by. Then Hyojin took back the mask and disappeared in front of Sasuke. Looking at the shining ice mirror gradually disappearing in the sky, Sasuke, who landed on the island, covered his eyes with his hands and thought to himself, "I finally succeeded, I finally have the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that will never be blinded." Immediately after, he put his hand on the ninja bag on his waist and thought to himself, "It's best not to tell the clan that I joined Amatsukami without permission. After all, father's Manjikyu Sharingan was taken by Amatsukami, and Sensei also defeated Jishue and Shinichi-san. If I tell the clan that I joined Amatsukami, they will definitely not understand me. Amatsukami is too powerful, Sensei alone is enough to destroy the entire Uchiha clan, so for the sake of the clan, this is the right thing to do." Turning his head and looking in the direction of the village, Sasuke secretly made up his mind. Since father and brother entrusted the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to me, then the safety of the clan will be shouldered by me in the dark. This is my mission. At this moment, Sasuke, who has secretly joined Amatsukami, suddenly felt that he was carrying the fate of the entire clan, the cornerstone of protecting the Uchiha clan in the dark. On the other side of Hyojin. After hurriedly returning to the Sky Fortress, Kuroto did not stay in the Sky Fortress for long. Instead, he directly threw his spirit body into the Fire Release Avatar. Then, he temporarily sealed the Een Release Avatar in a scroll and carried it with him. Then, he quickly left the Sky Fortress and secretly returned to the small island where he left Sasuke. The second chapter is here. I will continue to ask for recommendation votes on Monday. There will be a third chapter later. Chapter 1167. The reason why Hyojin hurriedly returned to the island where he left Sasuke is because he is worried about Sasuke wandering alone in the shinobi world. Although Sasuke's current strength isn't weak, if he really encountered Akatsuki or Otsutsuki samurai, it would be difficult for him to protect himself. Secondly, he needs to go back to the village. After deciding on the location of the ceremony, all that's left is to spend money. However, Hyojin doesn't have any money on hand right now. When Akatsuki launched the last attack, he spent all the money he could just in case, so now he needs to raise a sum of money for the enchantment around the ceremony. As for the source of the money, Kuroto has already considered it. The last time he dealt with Akatsuki's attack, the 5 great shinobi villages agreed to pay a commission to Amatsukami, plus the compensation from the village pretending to be Amatsukami. These 2 sums of money should be enough to cover all the expenses needed for the ceremony. This is also the reason why he temporarily changed the fire release clone. After all, it would be too shameful to let Yama, who is mistaken by the public to be an immortal, personally deal with this matter. Suijin had a grudge with Mai and Kumo during the incident of Kumo kidnapping Hinata. Wind Chime rolled her eyes in front of Kuroto. Xidagarba couldn't explain the origin of the dust release to Iwamakure, and Kirin is involved in the relationship between Amatsukami and the mist. In addition, when Hyojin took the initiative to talk to the village about cooperation, he used the identity of Homasubi. The last time Itachi and Hyojin played a 2-man show in front of the village, they also used the identity of Homasubi, so it is most appropriate for him to use the identity of Homasubi to ask for money. In addition to the debt, Hyojin also has another purpose in returning to the village, and that is to ask Guy about the method to open the 7th gate of the 8 inner gates, the Gate of Wonder. Kuroto feels that Guy should be able to open the 7th gate by now. According to the trajectory of Guy's life in the original timeline, Guy will have the ability to open the 8th gate of death at any time during the 4th Shinobi War. This undoubtedly shows that Guy has already mastered the 7th Gate of Wonder for a long time before the 4th Shinobi War, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to open the 8th Gate of Death so smoothly. Hyojin was not arrogant, nor did he have the intention to compare himself with others. In his opinion, if there was a problem that he could not understand, he should humbly ask others for advice. After a long time, Hyojin returned to the island and secretly monitored Sasuke, who was returning to the Nation of Fire by boat. After a few days, Sasuke successfully disembarked and returned to the Nation of Fire. However, as soon as Sasuke stepped into the territory of the Country of Fire, he was blocked by a group of people that Hyojin didn't expect. In the forest, Sasuke indifferently looked at Orochimaru, who blocked his way, as well as Kimimaro, Haku, Yugo, and Yamato, who were standing behind Orochimaru, and said indifferently, "Kimimaro, so you are the subordinates of Orochimaru, no wonder you have been looking for trouble with me over and over again." Sasuke is not stupid, seeing the 4 ninjas standing respectfully behind Orochimaru. He immediately understood why the ninjas targeted him during the Chunin exam, and also guessed that the person behind the ninjas is likely to be one of the 3 Sannin of Mai, Orochimaru. This is not difficult to speculate, because Orochimaru once sneaked into Uchiha's mansion and kidnapped him when he was still a child, so he is very clear about Orochimaru's desire for him. Looking at Sasuke's indifferent expression, as if he didn't put them and others in his eyes, Orochimaru slowly pulled out a long sword, stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, and said with a hoarse smile in his unique voice, as expected of the genius of the Uchiha family, "Even after meeting me, you still don't panic." Sasuke put one hand on his waist and glanced at Orochimaru with disdain. "Orochimaru, you'd better not mess with me. I may not control my strength and accidentally kill you. Hyojin, who was hiding not far away and watching Sasuke all the way, couldn't help but laugh and said to himself, "When you speak, it's the old Sasuke." When Orochimaru became famous as one of the 3 Sannin of Mai, Sasuke was not yet born. But now Sasuke, facing a strong person like Orochimaru, showed an attitude of not even bothering to pay attention to him. Not to mention Orochimaru, even Hyojin, a bystander, couldn't stand it. Sure enough, as soon as Sasuke's voice fell, the 4 ninjas standing behind Orochimaru all showed anger on their faces. "Hey," Orochimaru sneered, but his eyes did not stay on Sasuke. Instead, they moved to where Hyojin was hiding in the distance. Seeing that Orochimaru had discovered him, Hyojin no longer hid. He directly stood on the branch of a big tree, openly watching the confrontation between Orochimaru and Sasuke. When Sasuke saw Hyojin appear with the fire release clone, his face immediately lit up. Orochimaru licked his lips and said, "Fire demon? Looks like your Amatsukami has also set its eyes on Uchiha Sasuke." Hyojin didn't say anything, he just leaned on the tree trunk and silently observed the scene. On the surface, it is difficult for him to judge whether Orochimaru is currently using the body of Yakashoku or some other body. Anyway, in the vision of Byakugan, the chakra reaction in Orochimaru's body is very strong, indicating that this body has enough chakras amount. Another thing that attracted Hyojin's attention was the long sword in Orochimaru's hand. If he remembers correctly, this simple and exquisite long sword should be the Kusanagi sword that Sasuke is used to use in the original space and time. Watching Orochimaru holding the Kusanagi sword and looking for Sasuke, who has just obtained the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Kuroto suddenly had a ridiculous feeling in his heart. Is this considered sending a sword to my door? Then, Hyojin moved his gaze to Haku behind Orochimaru. Judging from Orochimaru's current reaction, it is obvious that Haku didn't report to Orochimaru that he is the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, after returning to the Sound Village. Of course, Haku probably didn't do this to protect Hyojin, but to protect Orochimaru. Perhaps Haku knows that with Orochimaru's personality, once he learns that his disciple is the leader of Amatsukami, Orochimaru, he will most likely do something dangerous, so in order to protect Orochimaru, Haku chose to hide it. Hyojin's appearance obviously disrupted Orochimaru's deployment. Kuroto pondered for a moment, then immediately ordered the 4 ninjas standing behind him, "You go install Homasubi, I will personally deal with Uchiha and Sasuke." The 4 shinobi quickly responded, and with a flash, they surrounded Suijin, who was standing on the branch of the tree. At this time, Orochimaru focused his attention on Sasuke and said with a smile, "Now let me see how much of a genius Uchiha is worth." Third update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, I would like to thank the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1168. Orochimaru was undoubtedly a proud person. This could be seen from the Mai's destruction plan that he launched in his original time and space that was of no benefit to him. Therefore, in the face of the contempt of a 13 or 14-year-old Uchiha, he did not show it on his face, but he was very angry in his heart. This was because Sasuke's contempt for him reminded him of the losses he had suffered under the Sharingan Eye in the past. Therefore, he clasped his hands together with a smirk on his face. Boom, accompanied by the shaking of the ground, 2 coffins rose from the ground and appeared in the field. Then, the coffin lids of the 2 coffins fell, revealing the figures of the first generation and the second generation, who obviously still had the clothing style of the Warring States period. Orochimaru had a playful look on his face. Let the first generation and the second generation test the strength of a genius like you, Uchiha. Staring at the 2 impure bodies in the coffins that looked like corpses on the surface, Sasuke curled his lip. Hey, Orochimaru, have you fallen to the point of playing with corpses? First generation, second generation? Are you kidding me? Orochimaru first made a seal, urging the first generation and second generation to walk out of the coffins, and then slowly said, I hope your strength matches your tone. Looking at the first generation and second generation who walked out of the coffins, Sasuke's face sank. Although he now had the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he was after all just a genin who had just graduated from a ninja school not long ago. In addition, the Orochimaru in this time and space did not launch the Mai's destruction plan in the original time and space, and the impure bodies of the first generation and second generation had not appeared in front of the public, so he did not know much about the impure earth Tensei. From the looks of it, it seems like it really is the first generation and second generation. Sasuke was not afraid even though he had doubts in his heart. In his opinion, Sensei is paying attention to him at this moment, and this is a heaven-sent opportunity for him to show off his strength to Sensei, so not only is he not afraid, but he is also eager to show off the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan he has just obtained in front of Sensei. Hiss soon, when Orochimaru activated the first gen and second gen's impure earth form, steam rose from the two impure earth forms. As the steam spread from their bodies, the two corpse-like gray bodies gradually came to life. Their dull eyes also slowly regained their vigor. A moment later, the first-generation Earth Physique said, This technique again? The second-generation Earth Physique's face was gloomy, and his eyes swept around the audience, pausing on Hyojin and Orochimaru, and then locked on Sasuke in front of him. Looking at the Uchiha emblem on Sasuke's clothes, he said, Uchiha? At this time, Orochimaru smiled coldly and said, First generation, second generation, don't underestimate this Uchiha boy in front of you. He is a genius Uchiha who awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 13. After listening to Orochimaru's words, both the first generation and second generation Earth Physique looked at Sasuke curiously. Seeing the first generation and second generation Earth Physique suddenly come to life and speak, Sasuke immediately activated his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Noticing the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets, the first generation Earth Physique was surprised. Second generation Earth Physique, who has studied the Manjikyu Sharingan in depth, immediately judged from the complex pattern on Sasuke's Sharingan that Sasuke's Sharingan is not an ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan, but the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is the same as Uchiha Madara's. At this time, Orochimaru also noticed the pattern on Sasuke's Sharingan. It is a little different from the pattern on the Manjikyu Sharingan that awakened during the Chunin exam, so his expression changed, and he suddenly thought of something, and suddenly a look of ecstasy appeared on his face, and he urged the first generation and second generation Earth Physique. Hurry up! The first generation and second generation Earth Physique just wanted to say something, but suddenly their expressions stiffened, and then they began to make hand seals. Obviously, for the sake of insurance, Orochimaru didn't let go of his control over the Hokage and Hokage. Although this greatly weakened the strength of the Hokage and Hokage, it allowed him to completely control them. Wood Release, Tree World Descent, Genjutsu, Dark Walking Technique. In a flash, the two Earth Physique completed the hand seals and launched their respective ninjutsu. Rumble, in a violent earthquake, countless trees broke out of the ground and grew wildly with the trees that existed in the forest. At the same time, a darkness enveloped the forest, like a black hole sucking away all the light. Orochimaru jumped out of the field and said, In Sasuke's eye sockets, it should be the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan like Danzo. The eternal Manjikyu Sharingan above the Manjikyu Sharingan left a deep impression on Orochimaru. At that time, he was defeated by the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan of Danzo. If it was not for the curse on Haku, Yamato, and the others, he would have been killed by Danzo's gaze. Then he glanced at Hyojin in the distance, who was dressed as Homusubi of Amatsukami, and said, Amatsukami is targeting Sasuke, most likely because of Sasuke's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. I don't know if there are other members of Amatsukami nearby. I can't drag this on any longer, I must end this quickly. Boom! Or suddenly, there was a loud roar on the battlefield that was shrouded in darkness. Orochimaru looked toward the direction of the sound, and suddenly his expression was stagnant. At this time, a huge purple Susanoo broke through the darkness, broke away from the trees, and stood in the forest. What shocked Orochimaru is that this Susanoo is close to 100 meters in height, which is 2 or 3 times larger than the Susanoo that Sasuke launched during the Chunin exam, and not only is it wearing heavy armor, but it also has a bow in one hand and an arrow in the other, and it even has a pair of huge wings on its back. In addition, Sasuke was not under the Susanoo as before, but in a diamond-shaped space between the eyebrows of the huge Susanoo. The complete form of Susanoo? Orochimaru was surprised and happy at the same time. If he was only suspicious before, now he can basically conclude that the Susanoo in Sasuke's eye sockets is the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, because this kind of Susanoo with wings is the complete Susanoo that can only be used by the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. He has confirmed this point in the battle between Hyojin and Danzo, who controlled the fire-release doppelganger. On Susanoo, Sasuke still had a contemptuous look on his face as he said, "Orochimaru, I'm no longer the child I used to be, and you, Humph, you don't seem to have made any progress. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1169. In the face of Sasuke's sarcasm, Orochimaru's mouth twitched. What an annoying kid. After saying that, Orochimaru, who was eager to end the battle as quickly as possible, stopped arguing with Sasuke. Instead, he quickly made hand seals and repeatedly urged Hashirama and Hashirama to use the impure earth form. Under the control of Orochimaru, the first generation and second generation's impure earth body moved again. Almost instantly, countless trees grew wildly again, from all directions wrapped around Sasuke's complete Susanoo, and the second generation's impure earth body also moved to the crown of a big tree, quickly made a hand seal, aimed at Sasuke in between the eyebrows of Susanoo, and launched the water-release ninjutsu water cut wave. Whoosh! With a whistling sound, the rapid water beam into a line, like a laser, shot towards Sasuke. Sasuke completely ignored the attack of the first generation and second generation's impure earth body, and directly urged his complete Susanoo to sweep around with a long arrow. Rumble! In an instant, under the sweep of the huge Susanoo, which was hundreds of meters high, the earth trembled, the whole forest shook, and smoke and dust flew. And under this indiscriminate sweep, whether it was the first generation's impure earth body's tree world descent or the second generation's water-cut wave, both were annihilated in the monstrous smoke and dust. How could this be? Orochimaru, who was flying back, was surprised. He did not expect that the power of the young Sasuke's Susanoo was not inferior to the previous Danzo and Amatsukami's fire demon, or even better. Obviously, Orochimaru doesn't know that even if Sasuke also has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, as the reincarnation of Otsutsuki Indra, he is obviously stronger than other possessors of the eternal eye. Under normal circumstances, he thought that the 13 or 14-year-old Sasuke would be a pushover, and that his pupil power would definitely be weaker than that of Danzo and Homasubi. But in reality, the childish Sasuke's pupil power was the strongest out of all of them. Similarly, the 4 ninjas were also forced to retreat by the storm. So powerful! Yugo and Yamato were inwardly astonished as they retreated amidst the gigantic windstorm. They knew that Sasuke, who had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, was no longer the same as before, but they never expected that Sasuke would be this strong. Kimimaro and Haku were also surprised. More than 2 months ago, when Kamikaze Amatsukami attacked the Akatsuki, they had seen Sasuke's strength, so both of them were very surprised that Sasuke's strength soared so much in just a few months. No wonder Orochimaru, Sama has been secretly paying attention to Sasuke and Naruto. They really aren't ordinary ninjas. For a time, Kimamaro's heart was filled with mixed feelings. In the face of the storm of broken wood, gravel, and smoke, Suijin, who was standing on the branch of the tree, did not move. He still crossed his arms over his chest and leaned quietly on the trunk, calmly watching the changes in the field. The tree he was standing on seemed to be protected by an invisible force, and the raging windstorm was like a torrent hitting a hard reef. It helplessly slid to the sides. Sasuke on the Susanoo also turned his head and looked in the direction of Hyojin. "Sensei is looking at me." Feeling Hyojin's gaze, Sasuke felt that he was full of strength. Looking down, with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Kuroto quickly found the figures of Hashirama and Naidame-sama, and secretly analyzed. Wood release, water release. These are indeed the ninjutsu that Hashirama and Naidame-sama are good at. Could it be that Orochimaru really resurrected the two Hokage-sama? Forget it, everything will be clear after I get rid of Orochimaru. With a thought, Sasuke urged the Susanoo to flap its wings and set off a shockwave in the direction of Orochimaru. And taking advantage of the moment when Orochimaru was resisting the shockwave and had no time to pay attention to other things, Kuroto immediately urged Susanoo to draw his bow and shoot an arrow at lightning speed. Swish, the power and speed of the arrow shot by the complete form Susanoo is obviously much stronger than the previous half-body form, so in the harsh whistling sound, Orochimaru, who had already hidden hundreds of meters away, was instantly hit by the arrow. In an instant, blood splattered. The huge arrow completely penetrated Orochimaru's abdomen and passed through his body, nailing Orochimaru to the trunk of a big tree. Sasuke looked disdainful. "With this kind of strength, you dare to covet my Sharingan, ridiculous!" But just when Sasuke was about to remove the Susanoo, his pupils suddenly shrank. He found that Orochimaru, who was nailed to the tree, twisted his body like a snake and broke free from the arrow. At the same time, the shocking wound also secreted some kind of mucus, which prevented the blood from splashing, so that the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Sasuke curled his lips. "It's sticky, so disgusting." Orochimaru glanced at the huge arrow beside him that was still exuding a powerful chakra fluctuation. His eyes flashed. He subconsciously licked his lips and shouted, "Uchiha Sasuke, you belong to me." He immediately made a seal to relax the control of the two impure bodies, so that the two impure bodies recovered a certain amount of will. Because he knew very well that the impure body was like a puppet, even if it was the first generation or the second generation, it was certainly not the opponent of this Uchiha genius who was beyond his imagination, so if he wanted to hunt successfully, he must bear some risk of losing control. Soon, the impure body of the first generation and the second generation regained their consciousness again. Seeing the huge, complete form Susanoo in front of him, the impure body of the first generation's face sank. "The complete form Susanoo?" Second Dame Sama asked with a serious expression. "Big brother, don't you think that this young Uchiha is somewhat similar to the Uchiha Senna of the past?" "Well, it's really similar." The impure body of the first generation nodded. The second generation said with emotion, "How can the geniuses of the Uchiha clan appear one after another? This boy looks only 13 or 14 years old, but he has awakened the same Sharingan as Madara Uchiha. It's incredible." The impatient Orochimaru urged, "You too, now is not the time for you to chat, including this kid. The Uchiha clan in the village already has 4 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. If you can't get rid of him here, then the power of the village will inevitably fall into the hands of the Uchiha clan in the future." The impure body of the first generation said indifferently, "We are already dead, we should not intervene in the affairs of the village." Just like when he first saw Sasuke in the original space and time, the second generation naturally had a bad feeling towards the Uchiha Madara's younger brother, Uchiha Izuna, so he said, "Such an evil chakra, maybe we should really get rid of him." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1170. Evil Chakra? Sasuke's face turned cold as he listened to the words of the second-generation impure body. He wasn't sure if this corpse-like monster in front of him was the real second-generation Naruto, but he was very disgusted with the evaluation of chakra that the second generation gave him. After all, anyone would be unhappy to be labeled as evil for no reason, not to mention the prideful Sasuke. The first-generation impure body shook his head and didn't agree with his younger brother's suggestion. Finji, I've already told you not to make any hasty conclusions. We don't know anything about this Uchiha young man in front of us, so how can we easily judge who is right and who is wrong? Besides, we're already dead, so we shouldn't meddle in the affairs of the shinobi world anymore. Humph, you're just playing tricks. Hearing the argument of the second-generation impure body, it seemed that as long as they fought seriously, they could really kill him. Sasuke couldn't bear it anymore, so he coldly snorted and activated Susanoo. Boom! Instantly, under Sasuke's control, Susanoo swung its right arm that was holding the arrow and smashed the first-generation and second-generation impure bodies. In the loud noise, the first-generation and second-generation impure bodies that couldn't dodge in time were smashed into ashes. After the successful attack, Sasuke coldly said, "With this little strength, how dare you point your fingers at my chakra?" Whoosh! Suddenly, a breeze blew, blowing away the rolling smoke on the ground. Without the cover of the smoke, the figures of the first-generation and second-generation impure bodies that were reassembling appeared in Sasuke's vision at this moment. They can recover by themselves? Slightly surprised, Sasuke didn't hesitate and activated Susanoo to launch another round of attacks, shattering the first-generation and second-generation impure bodies that had just recovered. However, just like before, in the blink of an eye, the first-generation and second-generation impure bodies recovered under Sasuke's eyes. From afar, Orochimaru smirked and said, "They are truly immortal. I'd like to see how long your ocular power can last." The corner of Sasuke's mouth rose, and immediately cancelled Susanoo, and immediately used his Manjikyu Sharingan technique Amaterasu as he fell from the air. In that instant, before he even landed on the ground, the exceptional talent that had just recovered to its original state, the second-generation Earth body was ignited with an expanse of scorching black flames. The second King Yenlua's impure Earth form was scorched by the black flames. Amaterasu? The first-generation Dirt physique did not resist and said with a smile, "A very smart countermeasure. The Edo physique of Edo Tensei can indeed recover continuously, but the black flame of Amaterasu can also carry out endless attacks." After being hit by Amaterasu, the Edo physique will inevitably fall into a cycle of recovery and destruction for a certain period of time. Whoosh! Almost at the moment when the first-generation and the second-generation Dirt physique were hit by the black flame of Amaterasu and fell into a cycle of recovery and destruction, Sasuke who landed passed by them and attacked Orochimaru with lightning speed. There is no doubt that after discovering the immortal characteristics of the Edo physique, Sasuke immediately changed his target. After temporarily restricting the actions of the first-generation and the second-generation Dirt physique with the black flame of Amaterasu, he went straight to Orochimaru, who was the caster of the technique. Seeing that Sasuke's response was so decisive and swift, Orochimaru was quite surprised, but after all, he was a veteran Mysanin, so he quickly reacted and immediately waved the Kusanagi sword in his hand and slashed at Sasuke. Clang! With a crisp sound of metal colliding, the Kusanagi sword in Orochimaru's hand easily cut the steel-forged kunai in Sasuke's hand and pressed against Sasuke's throat. At the same time, two big snakes came out from behind Orochimaru and instantly entangled Sasuke's body and deliberately bound Sasuke's hands, so that Sasuke could not make hand seals. This sword, under the shock, Sasuke stared at the smooth fracture of the kunai in his hand and was stunned for a moment, then immediately moved his eyes to the sharp Kusanagi sword in Orochimaru's hand. Orochimaru skillfully avoided Sasuke's eyes, licked his tongue and smiled. Hey, if I wait another year or two, I'm afraid it won't be easy to catch you. In just one confrontation, Orochimaru used the unusual sharpness of the Kusanagi sword in his hand to catch Sasuke off guard, and suddenly reversed the situation. Soon, the two big snakes that entangled Sasuke bit Sasuke one after another and injected venom into Sasuke's body. I'll take your body. Seeing that the venom had been successfully injected into Sasuke's body, although Orochimaru was still vigilant and maintained the state of avoiding Sasuke's eyes, the tone of his mouth had returned to the previous teasing tone. So you're not just coveting my Sharingan. At this moment, Sasuke's cold voice poured into Orochimaru's ears. Orochimaru's face suddenly changed. Genjutsu? From Sasuke's cold and calm tone, he can clearly tell that Sasuke was not affected by his venom, and with his rich combat experience, he immediately understood that there is only one possibility in this situation, that is, he has fallen into a genjutsu, and the scene in front of him just now did not happen. In a trance, the scene in front of Orochimaru's eyes changed. Then he suddenly found that he had indeed pressed the Kusanagi sword against Sasuke's throat, but the two big snakes that entangled Sasuke had fallen to the ground, and because of the illusion, he himself could not move. At this time, Sasuke casually took the Kusanagi sword from Orochimaru's hand, and while playing with it, he said, "Under my Sharingan, your little tricks are meaningless, but the sword in your hand is very good. You can actually do such a thing." Looking at the light reflected from the blade when Sasuke took away his Kusanagi sword, only then did Orochimaru realize how he fell into a genjutsu just now. It turned out that after Sasuke noticed that Orochimaru deliberately avoided his gaze, he immediately shifted his gaze to the Kusanagi sword, and through the mirror-like blade of the sword, he cleverly cast a genjutsu on Orochimaru. Under normal circumstances, refracted vision generally does not meet the conditions to cast a genjutsu, and Orochimaru understands this, so he did not take any precautions. But Sasuke is different. Not only does he have the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but he is also the reincarnation of Otsutsuki Indra, so his pupil power is far stronger than Orochimaru's expectations. And this is the result of Sasuke not being good at genjutsu. If Sasuke was an Uchiha who is good at genjutsu, then with Sasuke's pupil power, he would be able to easily kill Orochimaru with just a glance, just like Danzo. At this time, Sasuke put the Kusanagi sword in his hand against Orochimaru's throat. If it weren't for Jiraiya-sensei's face, you would already be dead by now. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1171. Feeling the coldness of the Kusanagi passing through his throat, Orochimaru knew that he was defeated by the Sharingan again. He had fought against Uchiha Jishue, Uchiha Shinichi, Uchiha Takan, Itachi Uchiha, and even Danzo, but all of them failed without exception. The title of Konoha's Sannin, that he earned in the Shinobi War, has been trampled by the Sharingan again and again. And this time, he was defeated by Sasuke Uchiha. You little brat, Orochimaru's eyes were gloomy, although he couldn't move because of the genjutsu, but the killing intent on his face was constantly accumulating. At the same time, he was also surprised by the speed of Sasuke's progress. One must know that before the end of the Chunin exam that only half a year ago, Sasuke was still a rookie that he could easily deal with, a child that was not worthy of him personally dealing with. Unexpectedly, the Chunin exam awakened Sasuke's Manjikyu Sharingan, instantly stepping into the Kage level, becoming an existence that even he was afraid of. Because of this, the cautious Orochimaru didn't continue to let Sasuke grow, but within a few months after Sasuke awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, he immediately deployed and carried out this hunt. Kuroda thought that with him personally taking action this time, along with the assistance of Kimimaro and the other 4 ninjas, dealing with Sasuke who had just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan should be a piece of cake. But Kuroda did not expect that in just a few months, Sasuke who had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan has grown again. Not only does he possess the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, which is superior to the Manjikyu Sharingan, but even his grasp of the battlefield situation has made great progress. At this moment, Sasuke who was holding the sword against Orochimaru's throat suddenly jumped and flashed to the side. Rumble, in the next instant, wooden stakes shot out from the ground where he had been standing, accompanied by a rumbling sound. At the same time, Kimimaro, Haku, Yamato, and Yugo appeared in front of Orochimaru, protecting Orochimaru, who was still affected by the genjutsu. Holding the Kusanagi sword that he snatched from Orochimaru, Sasuke glanced at Kimimaro and Yamato and said, "If you want to continue, then I will accompany you to the end." At this time, Haku stepped forward to remove the genjutsu for Orochimaru, while Kimimaro looked at Orochimaru and waited for Orochimaru's order. Although Orochimaru was very angry after getting rid of the genjutsu, he looked at the distant Homusubi of Amatsukami, who seemed to be watching the show. He didn't know when the Homusubi would make a move, but he knew that he had failed this time. Continuing to fight would not only be meaningless, but it would also cause unnecessary losses. After weighing the pros and cons, he said in a gloomy tone, "Uchiha Sasuke, it seems that I have underestimated you." After saying that, he removed the impure earth form from Hashirama and Hashirama then restrained the anger on his face and said, "If you think that you can kill me, then you can also try." Humph! Sasuke snorted with disdain. Orochimaru looked at Sasuke deeply and didn't bother him anymore. He turned around and left with the 4 ninjas. Sasuke didn't chase after them. Instead, he waited until Orochimaru and the others disappeared from his sight. Then, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Hyojin. He said eagerly, "Sensei, so you have been following me." Hyojin said lightly, "Good performance." Sasuke, who was praised, was happy and said proudly, "One of the 3 ninjas, Orochimaru, is only SOSO. He is just famous, but he is not strong at all." Hyojin didn't answer. This time, Orochimaru obviously took it lightly. He must have planned to directly occupy Sasuke's young body, so he didn't come with Doubtu. Otherwise, Sasuke would have to face Orochimaru in the sage mode. Coupled with his appearance and the fact that he was able to restrain the 4 powerful sound ninjas, Sasuke was able to obtain a quick victory. Moreover, Orochimaru didn't lie when he left. It was easy for Sasuke to defeat Orochimaru, but it was not so easy to kill Orochimaru. Because with Orochimaru's human body transformation and secret techniques such as the Orochimaru-style substitution technique, even if Sasuke cut off Orochimaru's head with a sword just now, it would be difficult to kill Orochimaru. Even if he used Amaterasu to completely burn Orochimaru's body, it might not be able to completely kill Orochimaru. Sasuke thought of something and asked Hyojin, "Sensei, those 2 monsters just now, are they really the 1st and 2nd generation of my village?" "Yes." Hyojin nodded gently. Sasuke was shocked. How is this possible? Didn't the 2 sages die a long time ago?" Hyojin explained. Orochimaru used a forbidden technique called impure earth reincarnation. This technique can channel the souls of the dead from the underworld to the shinobi world. Sasuke suddenly became furious. Damn it, that bastard dared to blaspheme the souls of the 2 Naruto-sama. Unlike Sasuke in the original world, who only wanted revenge, because the Uchiha clan in this world was not destroyed, the rebellion was also suppressed by Amatsukami. The village and the Uchiha clan did not openly turn against each other, so the current Sasuke identified with the village very much. When he thought that the traitorous ninja Orochimaru could channel the souls of the 1st and 2nd generation Naruto as a ninja, he instinctively felt angry. After a while of anger, Sasuke was a little puzzled. Sensei, if those two were really the first and second generation sages, then how? Hyojin glanced at Sasuke. You want to ask why they were so weak that you killed them with the Amaterasu? Sasuke nodded quickly. Hyojin said slowly. That's just because Orochimaru suppressed their consciousness in order to make it easier to control them, turning them into walking corpses that only listened to orders. If Orochimaru completely released his control and let their consciousness return completely, you can experience the strength of the shinobi god, who pacified the warring states. There is no doubt that the strength of the first generation was above Uchiha Madara, who had the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and 9 tails. So, if it was the impure earth reincarnation in the best state, the first generation would be more than enough to deal with the current Sasuke, plus the second generation whose strength is beyond the ordinary Kage level. Sasuke is simply not enough. Of course, it is impossible for Orochimaru to do this, because once the control is completely released, it is difficult to say who the first and second generation will deal with first. But then again, Sasuke's performance just now really made Hyojin look at him in a different light. The whole response was clean and neat, and he showed his own advantages incisively and vividly, and he instantly saw through Orochimaru's weakness. Even if it was Hyojin himself, he would probably only be able to do this. Is this what talent is? The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly vote. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1172. The rapid growth of Sasuke's strength. Although there is an element of Hyojin's control, but the decisive factor is Sasuke's own potential and talent. If it were another ordinary Uchiha, Hyojin would not be able to achieve Sasuke's current achievements even if he worked hard. After confirming that the two people who were just summoned by Orochimaru were the first generation of Mai and the second generation Naruto, Sasuke recalled the second generation Naruto's evaluation of himself, and his heart was very uncomfortable. Immediately, he asked with a puzzled face, Sensei, why did the second generation Naruto-sama say that my chakra is evil? I can feel that he has a very obvious hostility to me, but I have never seen him before. Hyojin pondered a little and decided to tell Sasuke the truth. The reason why the second generation Naruto is against you is related to the Uchiha Madara's departure. Then, he briefly told the old story that Uchiha Madara betrayed the village and left Mai alone because of his disagreement with the idea of the first generation. After a few years, he controlled 9 tails to attack Mai and fought with the first generation in the final valley. When listening to Hyojin's introduction of the strength of Uchiha Madara, Sasuke was shocked. What? Uchiha Madara already had the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan at that time, and also controlled 9 tails? Then, isn't he invincible in the world? Sasuke felt that in the era where there was neither Amatsukami nor Akatsuki, Uchiha Madara with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and 9 tails should be unparalleled. Hyojin said indifferently, if there was no first generation, Uchiha Madara was indeed invincible in the world. Sasuke was shocked. The first generation Naruto-sama is so powerful? He can defeat Uchiha Madara with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and 9 tails by himself? Well, the battle in the Valley of the End that year ended with the death of Uchiha Madara. After a pause, Hyojin continued, but the first generation Naruto was also injured in that battle and died a few years later, so the second generation Naruto has a great prejudice against the Uchiha clan and a deep fear. Sasuke was relieved. It turns out that there is such a grievance, no wonder the clan rarely mentions Uchiha Madara. At this point, Hyojin didn't go any further. The reason why he mentioned these old things to Sasuke is mainly that he doesn't want Sasuke to have resistance or hostility to the village because of the prejudice of the second generation Naruto. After all, Sasuke is young and vigorous at the moment, and he has just obtained the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. His strength has steadily surpassed the general Kage level. In addition, the Uchiha clan is prone to go to extremes, so Hyojin must not take it lightly for some possible hidden dangers. Otherwise, it would be ridiculous if the power he painstakingly cultivated was dug up by the enemy. Putting down the matter just now, Sasuke asked Hyojin curiously, "Sensei, have you been following me all the way?" As he asked, his eyes swept over Hyojin's hands from time to time. When he noticed that Hyojin's white hands were not wearing new gloves, he subconsciously glanced at the pair of leather gloves that Hyojin had given him, and a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. Hyojin didn't answer Sasuke's question, and his figure flickered and flew in the direction of Mai. Seeing Hyojin rushing in the direction of the village, Sasuke was startled and quickly chased after him. "Are you also going to the village? Do you know, I have successfully integrated my father's Manjikyu Sharingan and have the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. I feel that my ocular powers have improved a lot. If you test me again, I will not let you down. By the way, before leaving the moon, I also joined Amatsukami. Now, like you, my code name is Fire Demon, and I also have the same cloak and mask as you." Following behind Hyojin, Sasuke kept talking. It seemed that he had finally found someone to talk to, and he wanted to pour out the boredom and annoyance he had felt in the past 2 months of integrating the ocular powers. Hyojin didn't say a word and directly ignored Sasuke's complaint. After Sasuke calmed down a little, he said in a cold tone, "Don't report what happened just now to Mai." Sasuke froze for a moment before he reacted. "Do you mean Orochimaru and the Sound Village?" If he hadn't seen Kimimaro, Haku, and the others standing respectfully behind Orochimaru, he wouldn't have dared to imagine that the person behind the Sound Village, which had signed an alliance agreement with Mai, was actually Orochimaru, who was a traitorous ninja of Mai. Hyojin nodded. "Well, the organization has other arrangements for Orochimaru and the Sound Village, so don't interfere." He was ready to incorporate the forces of Orochimaru after the ceremony was successful, so he didn't want to cause trouble at this time. After all, if the 5 great ninja villages knew that Orochimaru was behind the Sound Village, it was likely to cause a lot of disputes, which was completely unnecessary for him. Yes. Sasuke didn't hesitate and agreed. Anyway, in his opinion, there are many strong people in the village, and they are cooperating with Amatsukami, so Orochimaru, who was defeated by him, won't be able to stir up any waves. Both of them were extremely fast, shuttling through the forest like ghosts, often crossing a large part of the forest in just a few leaps and bounds, so even though it would have taken them a few days to reach Konoha village, the 2 of them arrived before nightfall. "Looking at the wall of my village not far away," Sasuke asked, "Sensei, why did you come to the village? Can I help you?" Hyojin said, "You don't need to worry about my affairs, you have been away from home for a long time, go home quickly." Sasuke also missed his family a little, so he nodded. "Well, if you need anything, you can come directly to the Uchiha clan to find me." Hyojin didn't say anything more. His figure flickered, crossed the wall of the village, and disappeared into the night of my village. Staring at Hyojin's leaving figure, Sasuke secretly thought, "Sensei came to the village this time to talk about cooperation with the Godame. I hope there will be no accidents." Immediately, Sasuke shook his head and smiled. "With Sensei's strength, there is no need for me to worry. I'd better go home first. Tell father, mother, and brother the good news that I have successfully merged with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan." After making up his mind, Sasuke, who was carrying the Kusanagi sword, also activated the body flicker technique and quietly sneaked into the village. He didn't know that he actually went out this time with the permission of the village, so he was worried that the village would investigate, so he sneaked all the way, deliberately avoiding the patrolling ninjas in the village, and sneaked back to the Uchiha clan. I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1173. The beating and suffering that Sasuke has suffered over the past 2 months has obviously not been in vain. After the training of Hyojin, his abilities in all aspects have been greatly improved, even his perception and stealth are no exception. Under the cover of the deep night, he was able to conceal himself from all the patrols in the village. The village's heavily guarded defense seemed to be useless in front of him, allowing him to quietly sneak back to the Uchiha clan's territory. After returning to the Patriarch's mansion, Sasuke could no longer suppress the excitement in his heart and rushed straight to his parents' residence in the backyard. "Father, Mother, I'm back." Uchiha Mikoto immediately came out to greet him. After seeing Sasuke, she didn't ask about the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but looked at Sasuke from head to toe and said with a gratified smile, "You've grown taller." Inside the house, Uchiha Fuyue was sitting cross-legged with his hands crossed over his chest. Although his face still had the usual serious expression, the posture of listening to the conversation completely exposed his mood at the moment. Itachi, who was at home, also rushed over when he heard the noise. Looking at Sasuke, who was full of vigor and sharpness, he smiled slightly. Soon, the whole family returned to the house. Sasuke nodded his head and bowed respectfully to Fuyue, who was sitting at the head of the table, and said, "Father, I have successfully merged with your Manjikyu Sharingan and obtained the legendary Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan." After saying that, Sasuke raised his head and opened the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket. Staring at the complex pattern of the 6-pointed star and the 3-edged shuriken intertwined on the Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets, Mother Mikoto said, "Is this the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan?" Itachi also carefully observed Sasuke's new pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and sighed with emotion. What a powerful pupil power! There is no doubt that with Itachi's perception, he doesn't even need to fight with Sasuke to feel the power contained in his Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Sasuke smiled and said, "In order to integrate this pair of Sharingan, it took me more than 2 months." Mikoto let out a long sigh of relief. Amatsukami really did it. Before this, Mikoto was still a little worried that Amatsukami would break their promise, but now that Sasuke has returned with the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, all her worries have naturally disappeared. Fuyue, who had been keeping a straight face, also revealed a gratified expression at this moment. Seeing that Fuyue's eyes were closed tightly, Sasuke said with some guilt, "Father, I have integrated with your Sharingan, causing you to lose your sight forever." Without waiting for Sasuke to finish his words, Fuyue slowly opened his eyes, revealing the scarlet pupils inside. Sasuke was taken aback. "Father, you are?" Fuyue stared at the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets, as if he was admiring his own eyes. His face was filled with a slightly reserved pride. Itachi, who was standing on the side, explained, "During the time you were away, Father has received a transplant operation, a pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan, so you don't need to worry about it at all." On the night of Uchiha's rebellion, Jishui and Shinichi eradicated the radical faction in the clan and obtained a lot of 3 Magatama Sharingan. Now that the situation has stabilized, the radical faction of Uchiha clan has been completely annihilated. Fuyue also gave up the idea of fighting for the position of Naruto, so after reporting to the advisory group of elders, Tsunade personally transplanted this pair of Sharingan into Fuyue's body. Of course, considering that he had presided over the rebellion, and the position of the Patriarch has been passed to Itachi, so Fuyue, who has regained his sight, is still in a state of retirement. That's great. Sasuke finally put down the stone in his heart. Before this, although he was very excited to get the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he has always felt a deep sense of guilt in his heart, feeling that the power he obtained was at the cost of his father's blindness. Now that he saw his father regained his sight, the guilt in his heart gradually dissipated. Whoosh! At this moment, with the sound of 2 air-breaking sounds, Jishui and Shinichi came together and rushed into the house while shouting, "Itachi, Homasubi has appeared in the village." "Homasubi?" Itachi was slightly startled. Of the 4 Homusubi in the organization, 3 of them are here, so the Homusubi that Jishui and Shinichi mentioned is undoubtedly Uchiha Flames. Sasuke's expression changed and asked hurriedly, "Where is she?" Like Itachi, Sasuke also immediately determined who the Homusubi that Jishui and Shinichi mentioned is, because he returned to the village with Homusubi. "Sasuke, did you succeed?" Jishui and Shinichi noticed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets at this time. Because the pattern of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is much more complex than the ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan, and the two of them are very clear about the pattern of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, so with just a glance, they immediately judged that the Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets are no longer the ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan from before. Sasuke just nodded casually, acknowledging Jishui and Shinichi's guess, and then led the topic back to Homusubi and asked, "What happened to Homusubi? Where is she?" Seeing that Sasuke is so concerned about the whereabouts of Homusubi, Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi looked at each other. A trace of imperceptible worry flashed in their eyes. Obviously, they think that Sasuke still hates Amatsukumi's organization like before. Coupled with the fact that Sasuke now has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, his pupil power has skyrocketed, and his strength has greatly increased. Now, even the 3 of them are not sure whether they can suppress Sasuke before fighting, so if Sasuke acts impulsively against Uchiha Sharingan, it is likely to cause a lot of trouble. And with the insight of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Sasuke naturally noticed the exchange between Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi, and immediately thought to himself, "Oh no, brother Jishui, brother Shinichi, do they want to attack Sensei?" As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Sasuke was shocked and secretly analyzed. That's right, Sensei participated in the attack on the family last time, and he also personally defeated brother Jishui and brother Shinichi. With the pride of the brothers, how can they be completely indifferent to this? Thinking of the grudge between Sensei and Uchiha clan, especially the last time Sensei defeated Jishui and Shinichi, Sasuke is more certain of his judgment. Considering that his brother Itachi has also awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, and he himself has the legendary eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, the Uchiha clan already has an amazing pair of eternal eyes and 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan. The ratio of strength is 4-1. No matter how he calculates the battle situation, the odds of winning are extremely high. We must find a way to stop him. We must find a way to stop them. So, the 2 sides looked at each other, and they all secretly made up their minds. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1174. Such a scene, coupled with the unique mysterious temperament of the fire escape clone, immediately made the entire scene feel ethereal and illusory. Swoosh, 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 the sound of wind breaking echoed around the street. These were obviously the ninjas of Mai who rushed over after hearing the news. Is it Amatsukumi's fire demon? Yes, it should be her. The others would not dare to be so ostentatious. Why are the flames around her purple? Didn't the intelligence say that she is good at controlling a type of golden flame? Who can say for sure about Amatsukumi's matters? Be it the patrol team or the Umbu, when they found the suspicious person wearing the black gold-edged cloak of Amatsukumi and the flame-patterned mask, they did not act rashly. Instead, they scattered around the streets and began to closely monitor the fire demon as they whispered to each other. This purple flame is not simple. It's best not to look at it directly. At this time, an Uchiha ninja from the police force hurriedly warned everyone. The Mai ninjas around them only then realized that this Uchiha ninja from the police force had not only activated the 3 Magatama Sharingan in his eye sockets, but also had an extremely serious expression on his face. As everyone knew, The Uchiha clan was best at fire release and illusion. Therefore, seeing this Uchiha ninja's serious expression, everyone did not dare to be careless. They quickly looked away from the street, no longer looking directly at the fire demon of Amatsukami that looked not real at all. Immediately, an Umbu could not help but ask the Uchiha ninja, "Is it an illusion?" The Uchiha ninja from the police force shook his head, wiped the fine sweat off his forehead and said, I can't tell either." The Umbu beside him was startled. "Even your Sharingan can't see through it?" Uchiha Jonin sighed helplessly. Sharingan is also divided into strong and weak Sharingan. If the other party is the real Homusubi of Amatsukami and not an impostor, then the other party must have Manjikyu Sharingan. In front of the Manjikyu, my Sharingan is no different from your eyes. After listening to Uchiha's explanation, the Umbu realized that even the elite Uchiha of the Jonin class has an insurmountable gap in strength between Amatsukami's Homusubi and Homusubi. At this time, the surprise on Uchiha Jonin's face became more and more intense. His intuition told him that the scene in front of him might very well be an illusion, because he could feel a faint trace of mental power from the mysterious purple flame that lingered around Homusubi, and he also keenly noticed that the purple flame did not seem to have any temperature, and the ground that Homusubi walked on did not leave any burn marks. All of this indicated that the scene in front of him might very well be an illusion. But he repeatedly checked his brain, and there was no trace of chakra invading from the outside world. As a Uchiha Jonin with 3 Magatama Sharingan, he believed that even if he could not fight against the other party's illusion, he would definitely be able to tell whether he was under an illusion or not, so his common sense told him that he was not under an illusion, and the scene in front of him was not an illusion, but really existed. Therefore, he fell into confusion, completely unable to tell whether the scene in front of him was real or not. On a tall building in the distance, swoosh swoosh with 2 sounds of wind breaking, the 3 generations Naruto and Jiraiya landed on the roof of the tall building one after another. Kakashi, who arrived first, nodded and saluted 3 generations and Jiraiya. 3 generations looked at the street in the distance and asked seriously, "Can you determine the identity of the other party?" Kakashi shook his head. "No contact so far, but looking at the other party's behavior, the possibility of him being an impostor is not big. He has been carefully observing for a while. From the beginning of the appearance of the other party, his steps were steady and calm, and he walked all the way to the Naruto building. His purpose is also very clear, so Kakashi feels that the possibility of him being an impostor is not big. However, in view of the fact that the village once pretended to be a member of Amatsukami, he did not dare to rule out the possibility of others imitating the village and pretending to be Amatsukami. After all, the members of Amatsukami wear masks and cloaks, and it is difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. 3 generations frowned at this time, and began to pay attention to the mysterious, purple flame that lingers around Homusubi. Then his brows wrinkled tighter and tighter, and finally twisted into a ball. Because even if he is known as the professor of ninjutsu and knowledgeable, he could not find any information related to the purple flame in front of him in his mind. Jiraiya, who is good at fire release ninjutsu, was surprised. "What kind of fire release is this? Is it the same as the black flame of Amaterasu, also some kind of Manjikyu Sharingan pupil technique?" Whoosh, another burst of wind sounded. The shadow clone that Hyojin left in the village also landed on the roof of this tall building with a good view. Seeing Hyojin arrive, Kakashi quickly asked, "Kuroto, can you see anything?" Hyojin's shadow clone activated Byakugan, then shook his head. "The other party's mask and cloak are engraved with a sealing technique that can block my Byakugan's insight." Kakashi said, "It seems that we can only face it head-on." On the street, Hyojin, who was walking leisurely, naturally noticed the scrutinizing gazes cast by the ninjas around him, but he didn't care, or rather, this is the effect he wanted. This is not to say that he is deliberately showing off his newly developed flame release Kekii Genkai, but he wants to use the purple flame to prove his identity. Because he no longer has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he can no longer prove his identity by activating the unique golden Susanoo, like when he came into contact with the village before. At the same time, the main purpose of his appearance this time is to collect the debt. Since he is collecting the debt, he should show a strong performance. If he sneaks at this time, it is easy to arouse suspicion, and it is easy to fall into a passive position when collecting the debt. Instead of bargaining with the village and pestering endlessly, it is better to show an extremely strong performance from the beginning, let the village know his bottom line, and avoid misjudging each other and causing some unnecessary disputes. Not long after, Hyojin arrived in front of the Naruto building. At this time, the advisory elder group in the village and the shadow clone that Hyojin left in the village were already waiting there. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1175. Sensing the mysterious purple flame that lingered around the flame devil at such a close distance, the group of elders felt an inexplicable sense of dread. The blossoms of purple flames swaying under the moonlight were dreamy and illusory. They looked like illusory shadows instead of real flames. Homusubi of Amatsukami, who was bathed in fire, also became hazy and illusory under this scene. It seemed real, but when Shinichi looked at it, it didn't seem so real. Genjutsu? For a moment, this thought appeared in the minds of all the elders, even the generations of Naruto was no exception. Soon, the 3 generations of Tsuchikage, 4 generations of Leiying, 4 generations of Kazekage, and 4 generations of Mizukage, who had been staying in Mai, arrived together in front of the Naruto building. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, at the same time, Itachi, Jishue, Shinichi, and Sasuke, the 4 Uchiha also arrived in a hurry. Everyone's attention was instantly attracted by the flame devil and the mysterious purple flame on its body. Many of them had seen the female Homusubi of Amatsukami before, but this time, they clearly felt that the Homusubi in front of them was different from the past. In the past, although this Homusubi was also very mysterious, it was mainly because of the mysterious organization Amatsukami, and because she wore a mask, so no one knew her true appearance. But now, Homusubi just stood there quietly, and it made people feel an inexplicable fear, completely unfathomable. At the same time, the purple flame that lingered around Homusubi also made them very afraid. All the Kage are powerful ninjas with both strength and experience, so just by observing and sensing, they can judge that the purple flame on Homusubi's body that they have never seen before is by no means simple. At the very least, it's a Kekii level fire release. Needless to say, the Uchiha who were good at Genjutsu and fire release. As Genjutsu-type Uchiha, Itachi and Shursui have already sensed the incomparably powerful mental power emanating from the purple flame even before they got close to it, and Shinichi with his extraordinary perception even judged that the power of the purple flame in front of him is probably above that of Amaterasu. It's just that it's constantly alternating between the real and the illusory, not as direct and overbearing as Amaterasu. Unlike the others, the 4 Uchiha almost arrived at the Naruto building and secretly prepared for battle. Itachi, Shursui, and Shinichi made a simple communication with their eyes. Then, they looked at Sasuke from the corner of their eyes. If Sasuke decided to launch a sneak attack on Balrog, they would immediately stop him. They can't be blamed for thinking too much. The main thing is that last time Sasuke dared to sneak attack Nagato, the leader of the Akatsuki organization who has the Rinnegan, it really scared them. Coupled with the fact that Sasuke now has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, his strength is far better than before, so they can't predict what the young Sasuke will do. Itachi, Jishue, and Shinichi secretly prepared for battle, which was instantly noticed by Sasuke with his amazing insight, so his heart sank and he thought to himself, "Oh no, brother and the others are really going to make a move. I don't know if I can stop the three of them by myself." Although Sasuke is arrogant, facing Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi this time, he still felt very guilty, and even his palms were sweating. At this time, Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi silently began to adjust their positions, faintly separating Sasuke from Homasubi not far away. While Sasuke silently activated his 3 Magatama Sharingan and kept moving from side to side in his eye sockets, closely observing the movements of Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi, and at the same time, began to simulate the tactics to be used later in his mind. Seeing that Sasuke had activated his Sharingan, Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi didn't dare to be careless and also activated their 3 Magatama Sharingan. Perceiving this, Sasuke frowned, and the 3 Magatama on his Sharingan quickly rotated above his scarlet pupil. In this way, the 4 Uchiha began to secretly predict and adjust each other's movements, carrying out a secret confrontation. Hyojin glanced at the 4 Uchiha, who were acting a little strange, and thought to himself, "What the hell are they doing?" 3 Generations Naruto broke the silence at this time, walked up and said politely, My village welcomes Homasubi's visit. Please come to the conference room to discuss in detail." With that said, 3 Generations Naruto made an inviting gesture. Hyojin didn't answer, just nodded slightly, then put away the purple flame, and followed 3 Generations Naruto and the others to the conference room in the Naruto building. Jiraiya's gaze stopped on Sasuke for a moment, then followed 3 Generations into the Naruto building. Watching Homasubi enter the Naruto building with several Kage and the advisory elder group, the 4 Uchiha standing in front of the Naruto building were relieved. At present, with their identity, they are not qualified to participate in the secret meeting of the village elders, so they did not rush into the Naruto building. Inside the conference room, under the signal of 3 Generations Naruto, Kakashi said to Hyojin, who was sitting down, "Homasubi, in order to prevent someone from impersonating you, can you confirm your identity to us?" Kakashi's meaning is very simple. He hopes that Hyojin can show his Susanoo like last time to prove his identity. Although Mai was in a passive position when dealing with Amatsukami, he has never abandoned the most basic principle, that is, no matter what kind of cooperation, he must first confirm the identity of the other party. Previously, when Hyojin and Itachi sang a duet, Tsunade also used a sneak attack to force out Itachi's Susanoo, and verified the identity of Homasubi of Itachi. Only then did she agree to cooperate. It is precisely because of this that Hyojin performed the performance just now, so he was not surprised by Kakashi's request, and bluntly said, "Because of the development of the new Kekii, my Sharingan has some problems." "What new Kekii? Hyojin's calm words suddenly aroused a burst of exclamation in the conference room, among which the biggest reaction is undoubtedly the 3 Generations Tsukuha, who mastered the dust release Kekii. Because the birth of the new Kekii is bound to threaten the status of dust release in the shinobi world. The dust escape technique had already become the symbol of the Hidden Rock Village. If the status of the dust escape technique was affected, then the reputation of the Hidden Rock Village would also be affected. Kuroto didn't explain much and directly spread out his palm, releasing a flickering purple flame in the center of his palm. Staring at the purple flame swaying in Hyojin's palm, Tsunade frowned and said, "Is this your newly developed bloodline elimination?" Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. There will be a third chapter later. Chapter 1176. Outside the Naruto building, Itachi pondered for a moment and said, "It seems that nothing happened, let's go back first." Jishui echoed, "Well, it should be some cooperation between Amatsukami and the village. It has nothing to do with our Uchiha clan." Obviously, the two of them were worried that Sasuke would cause some trouble if they stayed here, so they decided to return to the clan's land first, and then ask Hyojin about the cooperation between Amatsukami and the village. Sasuke also had the same thought, so he glanced at the Naruto building with some reluctance, then followed his brothers back to the Uchiha clan's land. At the same time, he thought to himself, Sensei is representing Amatsukami to discuss cooperation with the village this time. Is it to deal with Akatsuki? With my current strength, I should be able to help. Shinichi didn't think too much about it and was still immersed in the purple flame that Hyojin used just now, muttering, "It's really strange, don't mention seeing that kind of purple flame, I haven't even heard of it before." Sasuke glanced at Shinichi calmly, thinking quite proudly in his heart, "This is Amatsukami's secret, I'm sorry, Shinichi-san, I can't tell you." In the conference room of the Naruto building, under everyone's gaze, Hyojin said in a flat tone, "This is the Flame Release Kekkei Genkai elimination that I developed, and because of it, my Sharingan is temporarily having some problems." Looking at the swaying purple flame in front of them, everyone's feeling became more and more profound. This purple flame seems to contain some kind of psychic power. As long as they put in a little bit of concentration, they were shocked to find that their attention was involuntarily attracted by the purple flame. This is a kind of flame that has a psychic charm. Soon, everyone's heart shuddered, and they quickly restrained their thoughts. 3 generations. Naruto pondered for a moment and said, "Your Excellency's flame escape bloodline elimination is indeed extraordinary, but it's hard for us to confirm that Your Excellency is Inferno from God's organization." Hyojin put away the purple flames. "How do you want to prove it?" 3 generations. Naruto immediately said, "Our 5 great shinobi villages have cooperated with your organization many times, there is no need for you to wear a mask in front of us." The other Kage nodded in agreement. Needless to say, 3 generations still hoped to deepen their cooperation in order to obtain more information about Amatsukami. After all, Amatsukami is too mysterious, to the point that no one dares to deal with them at ease, so if possible, the 5 great shinobi villages naturally want to know the true faces of the members of Amatsukami. After weighing the pros and cons, Hyojin reached for the mask on his face. Seeing Hyojin's action, everyone's eyes immediately focused on Hyojin's face. For them, this was a historical moment to witness the true face of Amatsukami. What did this flame demon look like? Could he be someone they had met before? All these questions would be answered at this moment. Soon, Hyojin took off the mask on his face, revealing the face of his fire release clone. Staring at the face of Hyojin's fire release clone, everyone was stunned. It was a strange and incomparably exquisite face. They had never seen such a delicate face before, and from his appearance, they could tell that the Flame Devil was not very old. He was only 16 or 17 years old. Of course, everyone present was a shadow rank powerhouse, so they wouldn't be shocked by superficial things like looks for too long. What really made them unable to recover from their shock was the unique aura of the flame demon combined with his appearance and temperament. It was an indescribable aura, and just looking at it made these strong people subconsciously vigilant, suspecting whether they had fallen into a genjutsu or not. At the same time, what surprised them was that the flame demon who had taken off his mask had his eyes tightly shut. Seemingly aware of everyone's doubts, Hyojin, who had his eyes closed, explained at this time, "I'm sorry, I can't let you see my eyes, otherwise you will all fall into a genjutsu." Listening to Hyojin's explanation, everyone quickly moved their gaze away from Hyojin's eyes. Obviously, they did not doubt Hyojin's explanation at all. Because the temperament of Hyojin's fire release clone is too mysterious and illusory, even if there is no chakra fluctuation, it seems to be some kind of genjutsu, so everyone has no doubt that if Inferno really opened his eyes and revealed his Manjikyu Sharingan, then even as Kage, it would be difficult for them to resist. And just in case, the Season 3 Generations Naruto gave a look to Hyojin's shadow clone who was in the conference room. He signaled Hyojin to observe with the Byakugan, After all, at this time there is no mask covering the seal technique. The Hyuga clan's Byakugan should be able to see the real situation in the eye sockets of Inferno. Hyojin's shadow clone immediately activated the Byakugan, pretending to observe carefully, and then nodded towards 3 Generations Naruto. 3 Generations Naruto completely removed the doubts in his heart. And seeing that no one openly questioned him, Hyojin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't open his eyes just because the Byakugan in his eye sockets is the original Byakugan, not the Sharingan, and the Byakugan is too conspicuous. Once he opens his eyes, he will immediately be exposed. Putting on the mask again, Hyojin went straight to the point. Have you prepared the commission and compensation from the last time? 3 Generations Naruto, who was already prepared, nodded. Please rest assured, Homatsuk-sama, we, the 5 great shinobi villages, will not break our promise. Zhuan Shao-chun at this time gave an order to the Umbu guarding the door of the conference room, and not long after, 2 Umbu came to the conference room with a few boxes and respectfully placed them in front of Hyojin. 3 Generations Naruto said, "This is the commission and compensation prepared by the 5 great shinobi villages together, of which the commission is 200 million and the compensation is 100 million. I wonder if Homatsuk-sama is satisfied?" As soon as he said that, the Kages looked at Hyojin. 300 million is indeed a huge amount of money, but when divided among the 4 shinobi villages, 300 million is nothing. Because the Mist Village is too poor to pay, and because they did not participate in pretending to be members of Amatsukami, they are not included. Therefore, this 300 million is actually negotiable, and the 5 great shinobi villages deliberately took out 300 million as a price that is both sincere and negotiable, is to take the opportunity to further negotiate with Amatsukami. After the last battle, they have confirmed that even if the 5 great shinobi villages work together, they are still unable to resist Amatsukami, so even if they have to spend money, they want to deepen the cooperation with Amatsukami to ensure the safety of the 5 great shinobi villages. Third update, please recommend votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1177. Looking at the boxes of money on the table, the corners of Hyojin's mouth rose slightly under the mask. As the 5th generation Naruto of Mai, he is well aware of what the 5 great shinobi villages are planning, but right now is the critical moment for him to break through the Kekii trap, so he is neither free nor in the mood to discuss the next step of cooperation with the 5 great shinobi villages. Because if this ceremony fails, he won't even be able to take care of himself, and the next step of cooperation will be in vain. And if the ceremony succeeds, he will smoothly become the 3rd Kekii trap in the shinobi world, and by that time, there will be no need to discuss this kind of cooperation, because at that time, he will quickly integrate the forces to wipe out the Akatsuki organization and establish a new set of rules for the shinobi world. Therefore, Hyojin didn't say any superfluous words and directly opened the Byakugan to check the money in the boxes. After confirming that there are no mistakes, he took out a storage scroll from his ninja bag and sealed the boxes of money into it. The cost of this ceremony is about 200 Ryo. Now that 300 Ryo is in front of him, he doesn't need to bargain at all, he can just take the money and leave. Therefore, in front of everyone's eyes, Kuroto put away the storage scroll and disappeared directly from the conference room, leaving the Kage and elders of the 5 great shinobi villages looking at each other in dismay. For generations of Kazekage was stunned. She left just like that? Tsunade immediately came back to her senses. Didn't we prepare too much money? Considering that the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, personally took action this time, coupled with the fact that the 5 great shinobi villages pretended to be members of Amatsukami without permission, the 5 great shinobi villages prepared 300 Ryo at one time. Moreover, in the eyes of the Kages, 300 Ryo isn't much. On average, a village only pays 70 to 80 million Rio, which is nothing for the 5 great shinobi villages, so the Kages were even prepared for Amatsukami to ask for too much. After all, according to their past dealings with Amatsukami, Amatsukami's appetite has always been very big. It's just that they didn't expect that Amatsukami didn't even bargain this time and just took the money and left. 3 generations, Naruto said solemnly. We miscalculated. The 3 generations, Tsuchikage nodded and said, well, we shouldn't have taken out the money directly. We can't even talk now. 4 generations, Lei Ing suggested, should we follow her? If we give chase now, we should still be able to make it. Kakashi shook his head. The other party is too dangerous. Once a misunderstanding arises, the gains will not make up for the losses. Jiraiya agreed with Kakashi's judgment. I'm afraid that none of us have the ability to follow Uchiha, who has such power. Not to mention the Manjikyu Uchiha, even the 3 Magatama Sharingan Uchiha are all experts in anti-tracking. After all, Jutsu Kekkei Genkai is an expert in the field of anti-tracking. On the other hand, Homusubi can make people feel like they have fallen into a genjutsu even with his eyes closed. Once he opens his eyes, the consequences will be unimaginable. There is almost no chance of winning against such a genjutsu master. Everyone present is a high-level person who has managed a shinobi village. They have strong willpower and rich experience, so they quickly recovered from the shock of Homusubi leaving without saying goodbye and began to summarize the information they just collected. 3 generations, Tsuchikage looked around at everyone and asked, do any of you know this Homusubi? Everyone shook their heads. The appearance of Homusubi belongs to the type that people will never forget. As long as they have seen him before, they will definitely have an impression of him, even if they just glanced at him on the street. But no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't find the corresponding memory. Only Kakashi frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. Seeing this, Hyojin's shadow clone asked curiously, Kakashi, have you seen Homusubi? Everyone in the meeting room immediately turned their eyes to Kakashi. Facing everyone's inquiring eyes, Kakashi shook his head and said, I haven't seen him before. Indeed, he had never seen the Flame Devil before. However, for some reason, he felt that the appearance of the Flame Devil was somewhat familiar. It made him feel vaguely familiar. 3 generations, Naruto asserted, I can be sure that he is not the Uchiha who grew up in our Mai. Zhuan Xiaochun, Tsunade, and Jiraiya all nodded in agreement. Although the Uchiha clan in the village has produced many geniuses in recent decades, such as Fuyue, Jishue, Shinichi, and Sasuke, but for now, none of them can be compared with Homusubi. Therefore, if a genius like Homusubi was really born in the Uchiha clan, the Konoha village would have long been aware of the existence of the Uchiha clan, so it would be impossible for them not to know about it. For generations, Lei Ing said solemnly at this time, there is something wrong with her age. Reikage and Hachibi's Jinchuriki once attacked Homusubi of Amatsukami's organization, Homusubi, on the Bird Cry Cliff. At that time, they used the tail beast Jade to sneak attack and successfully forced Homusubi to use the Golden Susan. But that was 8 or 9 years ago. Judging from the appearance of the Flame Demon when she took off her mask, it was obvious that she was only a 16 or 17-year-old girl. If that was the case, then the Flame Demon from 8 or 9 years ago was at most 9 years old. At the age of 9, she awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, stirred up a storm in the shinobi world, and easily got rid of the pursuit of the Kumo AB and Kumogakure at that time. This is obviously too sensational, Tsunade said. She should be more than 16 or 17 years old. I just vaguely saw a mark of the In seal between her eyebrows from her hair, so her actual age may be older than it looks. Everyone looked at the In seal mark on Tsunade's forehead, and compared Tsunade's current appearance with her real age, and immediately understood. Humph! Being looked at like this by everyone, Tsunade suddenly snorted lightly. Everyone hurriedly looked away in embarrassment. Only Mei, who was standing behind Yagura, didn't look away. She still stared at Tsunade and thought to herself, the unseal actually has the effect of retaining one's appearance. This is too amazing. Tsunade then said, what we should pay attention to now is how she got the unseal. This technique is Mei's secret. Hyojin's shadow clone pondered for a moment and said, the unseal is not only obtained in Mei, the Uzumaki clan should also have it. After the destruction of the Land of Whirlpools, it is possible that Amatsukami obtained it. Tsunade, who originally suspected that there was a spy of Amatsukami in the village, after listening to Hyojin's words, she thought for a moment and felt that it seemed to make sense. Because with the destruction of the Land of Whirlpools, many of the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan were lost in the shinobi world. Because the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato, was a member of the Uzumaki clan, so he mastered many of the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan. In the previous battle, when Sandaime Hokage used the ghost seal on him, he easily resolved it. If Akatsuki can do it, then Amatsukami can naturally do it as well. First, I'm asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1178. Hyojin didn't know that after he left, everyone in the meeting room was studying and analyzing him. But even if they knew, he didn't care. Anyway, this fire escape clone of his was cloned by himself. No one knew the root of it, so it was basically impossible to find clues through conventional methods. After leaving the Naruto building, he didn't stop and sneaked out of the village. After confirming that there was no one around in a secluded forest outside the village, he changed back to his escape body and sneaked back into the village. The next morning, he went to the Naruto building as usual after receiving the Shadow Clone's memories. Then, he went to a practice field in the village and found Guy, who was teaching Naruto, Ningxi, and Xiaoli. Teacher! Seeing Hyojin coming over, Naruto and Ningxi quickly greeted him and bowed respectfully. Yes. Hyojin smiled and nodded. Through the Shadow Clone's memories, he knew that because Kakashi had been cultivating and Sasuke had been traveling, Naruto and Sakura had been following Ningxi's class and receiving Guy's guidance. It just so happened that Naruto, who had mastered the Nine Tails Chakra mode, had received an overall improvement in strength, speed, and perception. So, it was time to polish his physical skills. So, although the 2 months of physical skills training seemed very boring, the improvement in Naruto's strength was very significant. It could be said that it solidified Naruto's foundation in physical skills and laid a more solid foundation for his future development. And with Naruto's stimulation, Ningxi and Xiaoli's training efficiency had also increased a lot. Just from their mental appearance, it could be seen that they didn't slack off in the past 2 months. It's just that compared to Naruto, their progress was somewhat insignificant. As far as Hyojin knew, Naruto could easily suppress Ningxi and Xiaoli. If Naruto went all out, Ningxi and Xiaoli would most likely be defeated in an instant. But that was to be expected. Naruto in the Nine Tails Chakra mode is a real Kage-level powerhouse. Even Sasuke with his Manjikyu Sharingan is not his opponent, not to mention Ningxi and Xiaoli. Actually, as long as they were not compared to Naruto or Sasuke, Ningxi and Xiaoli were still very outstanding. The two of them, who are only 14 years old, now almost have the strength of a Tokubetsu Jonin. In the state of Hashiman Tonku, their strength can even be compared to the Shoulder Jonin. At this age, this is already a great achievement. After briefly asking about the progress of Naruto and Ningxi, Hyojin sent the two of them away, then came to Guy, called Guy to the side, and explained his purpose of coming here. Guy was a little puzzled after listening. You are like this, Kakashi is also like this, what happened to the two of you? Why are you so anxious to practice Hashiman Tonku? Hyojin asked, did Kakashi also look for you? Guy nodded. Well, not long ago he asked me about the method to break through the 7th gate, Wonder Gate. Hyojin secretly thought, Kakashi is also breaking through the Wonder Gate? It seems that Obsidian's matter has stimulated him a lot. There is no doubt that with Kakashi's non-Otsutsuki bloodline physique, being able to complete the first 6 gates in such a short period of time, and the last gate before officially breaking through the Gate of Death, is enough to show that Obsidian's matter gave him the motivation to break through the Gate of Death. Seeing Hyojin was silent, Guy asked, "What happened?" Hyojin smiled. "Don't worry, it's not a big deal. The identity of Obsidian is still in a state of secrecy. The village does not want to disclose the fact that the masked man in the Akatsuki organization was once a Mai ninja, so even Guy is kept in the dark. Hyojin is different from Kakashi. He is breaking through the Wonder Gate for the upcoming Kekkei Genkai ceremony, so there is no need to tell Guy." Soon, the two came to another practice field. Guy said in the field, "I don't know how to do it, it's better for me to show you directly. You have the Byakugan, and you have already cultivated to the 6th gate of you. You should be able to understand at a glance." "Okay." Hyojin took 2 steps back and activated the Byakugan. Boom! With the surge of air, Guy immediately activated the 8 inner hidden gates, and opened the seal one by one, from the 1st gate Open Gate to the 7th gate Wonder Gate. Hyojin's eyes were cold. Guy's speed of opening the gate was fast and smooth. Even the 7th gate Wonder Gate was opened in an instant, almost without any obstacles. At the same time, he found that the flow of chakra in Guy's body did not change much. From the opening of the 1st gate to the end of the 7th gate, the flow of chakra was normal and direct, which is also in line with the characteristics of the 8 inner hidden gates Iron Fist style. "Hey, is there really no hidden skills? Then why can't I open the Wonder Gate?" In an instant, Hyojin's heart was full of doubts. Before long, Guy dispelled the 8 inner hidden gate. After all, even he found it difficult to maintain the state of opening 7 gates for a long period of time. And this was because he was standing motionless and hadn't launched any attacks. Otherwise, if he really did open all 7 gates in battle, his body would inevitably fall into a state of extreme weakness, and he might even suffer serious injuries. After taking a breath, Guy asked, "Mirror, do you understand?" Hyojin frowned. "The state of you opening the Wonder Gate is almost exactly the same as described on the secret technique scroll, but I can't open the Wonder Gate according to the description on the scroll." Guy wondered, "How can this be?" Hyojin analyzed, "And the chakra's amount when I tried was no less than yours just now. You can open the Wonder Gate, it stands to reason that I should be able to open it too." Guy thought for a moment and said, "Kakashi's situation seems to be the same as yours." After a pause, Hyojin asked, "Then what did he think?" Guy replied, "He seriously analyzed it for a long time, and then he told me that there might be a problem with his mentality. He was too impatient." Mentality? Hyojin was stunned for a moment, and then he immediately came to a realization. He had always known that when cultivating the 8 inner hidden gates, the mentality was very important, but because the previous cultivation had been very smooth, he had gradually neglected this point. Now that Guy reminded him, he immediately understood what the crux of the problem was. If Kakashika was stuck at the Gate of Wonder because he was too impatient, then he was stuck at the Gate of Wonder because he was too utilitarian when trying to break through the Gate of Wonder. He completely treated the 8 inner hidden gates as a part of the ritual, and his heart lacked the determination to forge ahead, so every time he was at the last step, he would fail on the verge of success. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1179. I should have thought of it a long time ago. Kai, his father, and the future Xiaoli are not ninjas who focus on technique. In terms of subtle control of chakra, they are not even comparable to many ordinary ninjas. However, they can all cultivate the 8 inner hidden gates to the peak, which means that the 8 inner hidden gates doesn't need such delicate technique. What it really needs is hard practice day after day, and the determination to move forward. Hyojin, who understood the crux of the problem, suddenly came to a realization. In truth, he had always known these truths. It was just that his previous success had caused him to be a bit impetuous and restless. He hadn't been able to calm his heart and carefully analyze the situation. Instead, he had shifted his habits of scientific research onto the 8 inner hidden gate. However, the 8 inner hidden gates was the profound meaning of the Iron Fist style, so it didn't need too many twists and turns. One had to know that Dai and Metke, the father and son who had cultivated the 8 inner hidden gates to the highest realm, were at the bottom of the line even when using ordinary ninjutsu. As their successor, Xiaoli was even more of a ninjutsu idiot. However, this didn't prevent them from cultivating the 8 inner hidden gates, so from this point alone, it could be seen that the 8 inner hidden gates didn't focus on techniques, but on confidence, perseverance, and even determination. I didn't expect that I would make such a low-level mistake. Shaking his head, Hyojin secretly reflected on himself. He had corrected Ningxi more than once because of this, but when it really fell on him, he made almost the same mistake as Ningxi. Then he sighed softly and said, "Is it because the ceremony is approaching?" During the reflection, he found that he was indeed a little impetuous during this period of time, and he lacked some of the calmness of the past, and this was probably because the ceremony was approaching. After all, for this ceremony that led to the peak, he had painstakingly planned and prepared for 13 or 14 years. Now that the preparations were about to be completed, even with his temperament, it was inevitable that he would feel uneasy. And these emotions of impetuousness and eagerness for quick success, when he thought about it carefully, were actually caused by this anxiety. In the end, I'm still afraid of failure. Hyojin knew that the more he desired success, the more afraid he was of failure. He also realized that he was not as calm as he seemed on the surface. He had been trying his best to hide it and did not want to show his worry about failure. After staring blankly for a long time, Hyojin smiled at Guy and said, "Guy, I really have to thank you this time." "Huh." Guy paused for a moment and said, "I don't think I helped much." Patting Guy's shoulder, Hyojin said in a deep voice, "No, you have done me a great favor." Guy's expression was a little strange. "That's what Kakashi said before. What happened to you guys?" Hyojin smiled and did not say much. Then, he left in a flash and rushed to his secret training ground in the backyard of the ninja school. After activating the surrounding enchantment, Hyojin, who was standing in the field, looked at the sky with clear eyes. It's not a shameful thing to be afraid. The ladder to the peak is not so easy to climb. Trying to hide your fear will only interfere with your judgment and make you ignore the real danger. Only by facing your own weakness can your mind be clear enough. After exhaling softly, Hyojin withdrew his gaze from the distance. Then, one by one, he put away his complicated thoughts and completely emptied his mind. He forgot about the utilitarian desire to break through the gate of wonder, forgot about the previous failure, and even forgot about the ritual that had been entrenched in his heart. He wholeheartedly threw himself into the cultivation of the 8 inner hidden gates. Bang, bang, bang. Soon, there were bursts of muffled sounds that seemed to be knocking on the soul in the training field, accompanied by the whistling of the wind. On the other side of the training field, Naruto, who was fighting with Ningxi and Xiaoli, suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance. Ningxi and Xiaoli immediately stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" As soon as they finished speaking, they saw a figure slowly walking in the direction that Naruto was looking at. When they took a closer look, they were surprised to find that the person was actually Sasuke, who had been traveling for more than 2 months without saying a word. At this time, Sakura also noticed Sasuke walking over and immediately greeted him excitedly. "Sasuke, you're finally back. Do you know how worried everyone was about you? Why didn't you tell us that you were traveling?" We're teammates in the same class. Naruto and the others also gathered in the field. When they got closer, they realized that Sasuke had changed drastically compared to 2 months ago. Whether it was the feeling that chakra gave people or his temperament, they were all very different from before. The current Sasuke and chakra gave people a very cold feeling. This made Sasuke, who liked to pretend to be cool, now look very cold even if he did not deliberately pretend. His whole body exuded a cold and sharp temperament. In addition, they also noticed that Sasuke's dressing was different from before. In the past, although Sasuke was also very particular about his dressing, it was only at the level of a rich family's son. Now, Sasuke wore gloves on his hands and boots on his feet. His body was almost wrapped in clothes, and there was a long sword on his waist. He looked very mysterious. Sasuke glanced at them, and finally his eyes fell on Naruto. Naruto met Sasuke's gaze and asked, "Sasuke, where have you been traveling in the past 2 months?" Sasuke did not answer Naruto's question. Instead, he asked, "Where is Teacher Kakashi?" Naruto scratched his head. "Maybe in a training field in the village. After you left, Kakashi-sensei has been cultivating alone. I'm not too sure where he is right now." Sakura thought about it and hurriedly replied, "I heard from Madame Tsunade that Teacher Kakashi is going to have an eye transplant today, so he should be in the hospital now." Sasuke nodded slightly, then turned and walked toward my hospital. Ningxi asked, "Sasuke, aren't you going to train with us?" Sasuke looked back at Ningxi, then shifted his gaze to Naruto, who was beside him, and said, "No." After saying that, without waiting for Ningxi and Naruto to say anything, he directly activated the body flicker technique and disappeared in front of everyone. Tion pulled Sakura and whispered, "Sakura, Sasuke seems to have become more handsome." Sakura looked at the place where Sasuke disappeared with a love-struck expression and nodded repeatedly. Xiaoli asked doubtfully, "Do you feel that Sasuke has changed?" Naruto said, "Yes, his chakra has become much stronger." Ningxi, on the other hand, sighed softly. Compared to the simple Naruto and Xiaoli, the sensitive him could clearly feel the alienation from Sasuke, as well as Sasuke's contempt for him. The Sasuke who treated him as a formidable opponent back then was no longer around. Now, Naruto was probably the only formidable opponent in Sasuke's eyes. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1180. My Hospital. After preparing all the surgical instruments, Tsunade said to Kakashi, who was lying on the operating table, "This is just a small operation, you don't have to be too nervous." Kakashi nodded. With the reconciliation between the Naruto clan and the Uchiha clan, the two sides have slowly begun to cooperate. Previously, the transplant of Fuyue's Sharingan was done by Tsunade herself, and in order to thank Tsunade, Fuyue, who knew that Kakashi was seeking to restore his left eye, represented the Uchiha clan and presented Kakashi with a 3 Magatama Sharingan. This is also the origin of today's transplant operation. Originally, Tsunade was planning to cultivate a left eye and transplant it for Kakashi, but an ordinary eye is obviously not comparable to the 3 Magatama Sharingan. And Kakashi, who has become accustomed to the Manjikyu Sharingan, the burden of a 3 Magatama Sharingan is nothing at all, so there is no need to think about it. Kakashi accepted the kindness of the Uchiha clan, because he knows very well that the lack of an eye is too great a restriction on his strength. Currently, his main means of attack are the Lightning God technique, Flying Thunder God technique, and Hashiman Inner Hidden Gates, and all of these require superb insight in order to display their true power. Therefore, for him, the 3 Tomo Sharingan is a treasure that can enhance his strength by a large margin in an instant. And in order to stop his best friend Obsidian, he must have stronger strength, because he has a hunch that the next time they meet, I am afraid it will be a real decisive battle. After a while, Tsunade said, Okay, the operation is completed. As expected, the operation went very smoothly. After the development of medical ninjutsu, the transplant operation has become very simple. Noira-Rin was able to successfully transplant the Sharingan to Kakashi in such a harsh environment on the battlefield, let alone Tsunade, who is now standing at the peak of medical ninjutsu. Kakashi sat up from the operating table and began to adapt to the newly obtained Sharingan. Tsunade, who was on the side, said while sorting out the surgical instruments, "This is not the first time you have received an eye transplant, so I won't say much nonsense about the things you need to pay attention to, but you have to remember, even if you have a long period of experience adapting to the Sharingan, you still have to be vigilant when using it." Kakashi nodded and said, "I understand." After pondering for a while, Tsunade said again, "You are not a member of the Uchiha clan, nor do you have the physique of the Senju clan, so it will be difficult for you to exert the full power of the Sharingan, so I suggest that you try to practice In Seal." Kakashi was surprised. What? Practice the In Seal? Tsunade glanced at Kakashi. Why? Didn't Kuroto mention it to you? Kakashi shook his head. Kuroto really kept his mouth shut according to my request. This is a bit beyond my expectations. After a chuckle, Tsunade explained, Kuroto improved the In Seal and created a version that can also be practiced by male ninjas. You can try to practice that version of the In Seal. Kakashi asked, "Is it useful?" Tsunade pointed to herself and said, "You don't need to doubt this point. In Seal can improve the physique of the practitioner. It is not as simple as storing chakra. Kuroto, and Homusubi of Amatsukami have all practiced In Seal, and you should be clear about its effects." Kakashi thought for a while, then nodded. Now, as long as he can improve his strength, he is willing to try anything, because he doesn't want to experience the feeling of powerlessness of being unable to stop or change anything. As soon as he walked out of the gate of my hospital, Kakashi met Sasuke, who was looking for him. Last night, Kakashi knew that Sasuke had returned to the village, so he wasn't too surprised. He just looked at Sasuke carefully and said casually, "You're back." Sasuke glanced at the blindfold on Kakashi's left eye and said, "Kakashi-sensei, I want to challenge you." After returning to the village, Sasuke thought about it all night and finally decided to start with Kakashi. He knows the strength of Naruto, and he knows that Naruto didn't use his full strength in the previous few battles, so even if he has the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he doesn't have the confidence to completely defeat Naruto. Kakashi was a little surprised and said with a smile, "It just so happens that I also want to find someone to test the effect of the newly transplanted Sharingan." Transplanted Sharingan? Sasuke frowned slightly. He knew that Kakashi will transplant an eye today, and just now he also sensed a chakra fluctuation under Kakashi's left eye, but he didn't expect Kakashi to transplant the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. Kakashi explained, "Well, it's a 3 Magatama Sharingan that your father gave me." Hearing that it was a gift from his father, Sasuke no longer hesitated and said, "Let's go." After a while, the two of them arrived at a remote training ground. Kakashi lifted the blindfold, revealing the scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan inside, and said, "Sasuke, I can feel that the chakra in your body has become a lot stronger. It seems that you have grown a lot during this trip." Sasuke held the hilt of the sword at his waist with one hand and said lightly, "Kakashi-sensei, you'd better go all out, otherwise you may lose very miserably." Listening to Sasuke's confident words, Kakashi was startled for a moment, and then immediately scolded with a smile, "You little devil." Before he finished his sentence, he disappeared on the spot with a swoosh. Then, countless sharp sounds that sounded like the cries of thousands of birds reverberated in the air above the training field. The corner of Sasuke's mouth twitched, and his figure also disappeared in place. In a blink of an eye, the entire practice field was filled with countless afterimages and constantly flashing electric arcs, accompanied by the sound of metal colliding from time to time, and the whistling sound of wind breaking. Kakashi and Sasuke are undoubtedly the same type of ninja, born with extraordinary talent, and can naturally combine taijutsu and ninjutsu together to display smooth and fierce attack. Since they are both master and disciple, and also geniuses, they directly skipped the process of testing each other, and started to fight seriously from the beginning. After fighting for a while, Kakashi was secretly shocked. He knew that Sasuke was very strong, but he never expected that after a trip, Sasuke would be strong to this extent. Even without using the Manjikyu Sharingan, he could resist his attack. Similarly, Sasuke was also greatly surprised. He thought that with his current strength, even without the Manjikyu Sharingan, he should be able to defeat a ninja of Kakashi's level, but after the fight, he found that Kakashi was far more difficult to deal with than he thought, and he was very clear that Kakashi still has a lot of tricks up his sleeves that he hasn't used yet. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1181. I didn't expect Kakashi-sensei to be so tricky. It seems that ordinary ninjutsu won't work. Do I have to use the kaleidoscope pupil technique? As soon as he had this idea, Sasuke shook his head and dispelled it. This was not because he cherished the pupil power, but because Kakashi was only the first target he wanted to challenge. It was just a warm-up before the main show. Next, he had to challenge Shinichi Jishuei and his brother Itachi, who he had never defeated before. Then, he would crush Naruto head-on with a complete victory and reconfirm his undisputed first place in the same batch. Finally, Sensei, I must make her look at me seriously. After the figure of Uchiha Flames flashed in his mind, Sasuke's eyes suddenly became firm. In his opinion, if he needed to use the kaleidoscope pupil technique to deal with Kakashi-sensei, then he was not qualified to challenge those who he thought were stronger. Kakashi obviously didn't know that Sasuke had defined him as a warm-up level. At this time, he glanced at the kunai and shuriken scattered on the training ground with a slightly dignified expression. Because these kunai and shuriken were all broken without exception. Moving his gaze to the long sword in Sasuke's hand, Kakashi said, "What a sharp sword. If I don't inject chakra, I'm afraid my kunai won't even be able to resist one sword." There was no doubt that the broken kunai and shuriken on the ground were all caused by the short confrontation just now, and the culprit was the long sword in Sasuke's hand. The kunai and shuriken forged from fine steel were like ordinary wood in front of that long sword. They were completely broken with a single cut and shattered with a touch. Only by infusing it with chakra could one barely resist it, just like the kunai in Kakashi's hand that was full of nick. But ordinary kunai were not forged from chakra metal, and the conduction of chakra was very costly, so forcibly infusing kunai with chakra was a very stupid act. What did Sasuke experience in the past 2 months? Also, what's with that long sword of his? Why is it so sharp? For a moment, many doubts surged in Kakashi's mind, making him reflect on his lack of concern for Sasuke during this period of time. After a brief confrontation, both of them silently launched their attacks again. This time, Sasuke changed his tactics. He gave up the idea of using taijutsu to directly defeat Kakashi. Instead, he shot many shurikens from his ninja bag, and through the steel wires wrapped around the shurikens, he laid a series of irregular steel wire locks on the practice field, and then launched a fierce attack with the Zaiden. Obviously, he wanted to use the super insight of his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to force Kakashi to reveal flaws in the complex combat environment, and then defeat Kakashi in one fell swoop. Sasuke's plan naturally can't be hidden from Kakashi. However, Kakashi has just transplanted a Samagatama Sharingan, and he also wants to try the effect of this new Sharingan, so he took the initiative to throw himself into the steel wire array and compete with Sasuke in subtle skills. Thus, the two of them moved around in the practice field that was filled with steel wires, engaging in a delicate and dangerous confrontation. Because in this steel wire array, a little carelessness may cause the body to be cut by the steel wire, and if the collision is too fierce, it may even be directly cut off by the sharp steel wire. Therefore, in this special field, once you make a mistake, you will be injured, seriously injured, and if you are unlucky, it is very likely that you will die directly. But whether it is Kakashi or Sasuke, both are rare geniuses, one has rich experience, and the other has excellent insight, so fighting in this dangerous environment can stimulate their fighting spirit. Clang clang clang. The harsh sound of metal colliding rose one after another in the practice field. The two fleeting figures of Kakashi and Sasuke also fought back and forth in the steel wire array, accompanied by the flames caused by the violent collision of metal and the flashing electric arcs. At this moment, Sasuke suddenly switched the Kusanagi in his hand to his left hand, and then his right hand suddenly stretched forward. In an instant, a large amount of purple lightning spewed out from the palm of Sasuke's right hand. This attack was deliberately arranged by Sasuke. Through the fight just now, he deliberately lured Kakashi to a special area in the steel wire array, where there is an inconspicuous steel wire connected to all the steel wires around it. As long as the purple lightning hit that steel wire, the purple lightning would be able to travel through the conduction between the steel wires in an instant. In order to conceal this trap, the other areas of the steel wire array were not connected. Previously, he had used purple lightning to hit the steel wire, deliberately proving it to Kakashi, so that Kakashi would ignore the conduction effect of purple lightning on the steel wire array. Zap zap, as the electric current surged, a dazzling purple light immediately enveloped the entire practice field, and it enveloped Kakashi from all directions. Got it! The corner of Sasuke's mouth curled up slightly. Zap! But just as the electric current was about to converge on Kakashi, Kakashi's figure suddenly disappeared. Sasuke's expression turned cold, and he said in surprise, "Flying Thunder God technique? No, I've been monitoring him. He didn't have a chance to set up a positioning technique in the practice field at all. Could it be that he flew to another place?" As soon as he thought of this, Sasuke suddenly felt a surge of air behind him, so he subconsciously turned around and slashed with his sword. Swish, the Kusanagi sword cut through the air, but there was nothing. At this time, the ground under Sasuke's feet suddenly cracked, and a figure shining with purple light sprang out from the ground, attacking Sasuke fiercely. Caught off guard, the three Tomo Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets suddenly changed into the pattern of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and then a purple shadow was projected from his body, covering his body. There was no doubt that at this critical moment, Sasuke was forced to use the Manjikyu pupil technique Susanoo. Boom! Kakashi's purple electric thousand birds hit Sasuke's Susanoo with a loud roar, and the Susanoo, which was in a skeleton state, was pushed back again and again. As the huge Susanoo was repelled, the steel wire array all over the practice field was also broken by the Susanoo. Soon, the smoke dissipated, revealing a messy practice field. Glancing at the steel wire that was broken by his Susanoo, Sasuke's face became gloomy, and then he removed the Susanoo, closed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and said to Kakashi, "I lost this time." After that, Sasuke left without looking back. Kakashi, who was ready to continue, was confused. What does this kid mean? At the same time, he also keenly noticed that the pattern of the Manjikyu Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets seemed to be different from before. The first update is here. Please recommend it on Monday. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1182. Although he once had a Manjikyu Sharingan, Kakashi was not a real Uchiha clan member after all. His understanding of Sharingan is mainly limited to the use of it. Therefore, although he found that the pattern on Sasuke's Manjikyu Sharingan has changed slightly, he couldn't analyze the reason for it. That kid was obviously full of fighting spirit just now. Why did he suddenly lose interest? Pausing for a moment, Kakashi once again thought of something and muttered, "Did that kid think that he would lose just because he used the Manjikyu Sharingan?" The more he analyzed, the more Kakashi felt that this was the case. Does that brat think that he can easily defeat me without using the Manjikyu Sharingan? I am also the representative of Naruto. How can I be looked down upon like this? Immediately, Kakashi smiled bitterly. In fact, he had long felt that Sasuke didn't respect him too much, but he didn't expect that Sasuke would look down on him so much, which made him angry and funny at the same time. But soon he adjusted his mood. Hey, how can I be looked down upon by a kid like this? With Kakashi's experience, he naturally wouldn't care about a kid like Sasuke, but Sasuke's attitude towards him still aroused his long-dormant competitive spirit. Not to mention the fact that his friend Obito is stronger than Sasuke, and both of them are from the Uchiha clan and possess Manjikyu Sharingan, so Sasuke is a very good opponent for Kuroto. Therefore, Kuroto decided that the next time he fights with Sasuke, he will treat Sasuke with the same seriousness that he would treat Obito with. On the other side, after leaving the practice field, Sasuke's face was gloomy as he sheathed his sword and thought about the fight just now. The one who fought with me just now was just a shadow clone? Then when did his real body hide in the ground? Could it be the detonation talisman at the beginning of the fight? After a little thought, Sasuke analyzed Kakashi's tactic. Obviously, at the beginning of the match, Kakashi had already used the smoke and dust from the explosion of the detonation talisman as a cover to quietly cast Shadow Doppelganger. So in the subsequent series of battles, Sasuke only faced one of Kakashi's Shadow Doppelganger. Because of this, Kakashi's real body had the opportunity to quietly set up the Flying Thunder God technique in the practice field. Because Kakashi's shadow clone wasn't strong enough, when it used the Flying Thunder God technique to travel through space, it was annihilated in the process. Therefore, it only created a turbulent flow of air behind Sasuke, and it couldn't directly travel to Sasuke's back. Sasuke slashed out with his sword, but naturally, he slashed empty air, while his shattered Jujo Kakashi, who was hiding in the ground, keenly grasped it. Damn, I was so easily forced to use Susanoo by Kakashi, sensei, what a failure! After understanding the cause and effect, Sasuke's face became more and more gloomy. Because he realized that his thunder release was taught by Kakashi, and his ninjutsu throwing and the use of Sharingan were taught by his brother Itachi, Jishui, and Shinichi. It is undoubtedly very difficult to use what the other party taught to defeat the other party. I must develop something that belongs to me in order to win by surprise. Thinking of this, Sasuke's mind moved, and the figure of Uchiha's flame surrounded by purple flames flashed in his mind, and suddenly an idea came to him. Flame release. For the current Sasuke, developing ordinary ninjutsu is no longer meaningful. What he needs is Kekkei limit, or even Kekkei elimination level of powerful ninjutsu. And flame release obviously meets this requirement. This is not a whim of Sasuke. He is very clear that his talent in ninjutsu is far higher than Genjutsu. He is a typical ninjutsu Uchiha, so instead of crawling in a field that he is not good at, it is better to focus on the field that he is good at. In addition, his Manjikyu Sharingan technique Amaterasu and Earth Life are both related to ninjutsu. Especially the Earth Life, that can control the flame form, is a sharp weapon for him to develop flame release. It can be said that this Manjikyu Sharingan technique was born for the development of flame release, so for him who has Earth Life, the difficulty of developing flame release is far less than other ninjas. Sasuke secretly made up his mind. In the next competition, I must defeat Kakashi, sensei. There are still many strong people waiting for me to challenge one by one. How can I waste too much time on Kakashi, sensei? Time passed day by day like this. In these days, while storing chakra in the Ein seal on his forehead, Hyojin concentrated on practicing Hashimantanku, and as he figured out the problem, the practice of Hashimantanku quickly achieved results. It only took about half a month for him to successfully open the 7th gate, Shock Gate, early in the morning. And with the opening of the Shock Gate, the final 8th gate, Death Gate, finally entered his field of vision. The 8th gate, Death Gate, is located in the heart of the human body. It is a real vital point. Once this gate is opened, because of the huge amount of chakra accumulated in the first 7 gates, it will cause irreversible damage to the fragile heart of the human body. So as long as this gate is opened, even if you don't attack and just stand still, your heart will eventually be crushed by the surging chakra and you will die. So under normal circumstances, the Death Gate is just like its name, opening it means death. In addition, Hyojin also estimated the chakra amount of the 7th gate, Shock Gate. If the Shock Gate is opened, the chakra amount will soar to 10 times the original. Then after opening the Death Gate, the surge of chakra amount is likely to double the foundation of the Shock Gate, reaching 20 times the original chakra amount in an instant. In other words, after opening the Death Gate, the rumor that one can instantly obtain more than 10 times the strength of the 5 Kage is not false. For example, Guy's father, Matt Dai, was just a low-level genin who was ostracized by his colleagues and looked down upon by the villagers. But once he opened the Death Gate, he almost eliminated the mist shinobi swordsman from the shinobi world in one battle, causing this infamous mist shinobi group to be silent for decades without being able to recover. And if Guy, who was stronger, opened the Death Gate, even a 6-path powerhouse could be killed with a single kick. Hyojin's current strength was already very strong. If he opened the Death Gate, on top of that, the effect of the increase might not be as exaggerated as Guy's. After all, every technique has an upper limit, but it would definitely allow his chakra amount to reach an unimaginable limit in an instant, and that would be the best time for him to break through the bloodline net. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you everyone. Chapter 1183. Thump thump, thump thump, feeling the pulse of his heart, Hyojin gradually emptied his mind. When the 7th gate of wonder was opened, he had a very wonderful feeling. It was a feeling that he had never felt before. It was as if he had full control of his body at this moment. I can feel the pulse of my heart, I can feel the blood flowing in my veins, I can feel the transmission of my nerves, I can feel the movement of my stomach. This feeling was like opening a new window, allowing him to re-understand his body from another angle that he had never tried before. After a long time, he sighed softly. No wonder. He had always been a little puzzled. How could Guy, who clearly did not have pupillary Kekii Genkai, be no worse than those pupillary Kekii Genkai ninjas in physical skills? He could even develop the strange ability to predict the enemy's movements by observing their legs. But when he opened the Gate of Wonder, all these questions were easily answered. The Gate of Wonder was like a shackle that shackled the body. Once it was opened, the whole body seemed to come alive. In the face of an unexpected situation, there was no need for the eyes to see, the brain to convey, and the body could respond appropriately. The iron fist is ahead of the soft fist. Even if Hyojin was a Hyuga, he had to admit this at this moment. Not to mention 80 gods of empty fist, although the principle of 80 gods of empty fist is similar to the soft fist of the Hyuga clan. Both are advanced applications of chakra and taijutsu, but 80 gods of empty fist obviously cannot be simply included in the category of soft fist. Even if the 80 god vacuo strikes was categorized as a soft fist, it wasn't the technique that was strong, but the fact that Otsutsuki Kagaya had an almost inexhaustible supply of chakra, which was the Kekii net. In terms of true versatility, The iron fist with the 8 inner hidden gates was undoubtedly better than the old-fashioned soft fist. No wonder Kakashi, as the 6th generation in the original Space and Time, had specially trained a team of 8 inner hidden gates. The 8 inner hidden gates was indeed a secret skill with a high upper limit and great potential. As long as one was willing to put in the effort, even if they could only open the 3rd gate, their strength would still significantly increase. Moreover, the requirements for talent aren't as harsh as practicing space-time ninjutsu. As long as you look carefully, you can always find some ninjas suitable for practicing the 8 inner hidden gate. Putting away his thoughts, Hyojin took advantage of the opening of the Gate of Wonder to comprehend the last gate, the Gate of Death. He did not know why, but he had a feeling that as long as he was resolute enough, he would be able to open the door of death even if he had just opened the 7th door of terror. In other words, the opening of the Gate of Death was easier than the Gate of Alarm. To be more precise, the price of opening the Gate of Death was death after opening the Gate of Death. After that, Hyojin jumped on the edge of knocking open the Gate of Death. Half of it was based on his experience, and the other half was based on his experience. He estimated the effects of opening the Gate of Death. The conclusion was the same as before. The moment he opened the Gate of Death, his chakra might skyrocket to about 20 times its normal state. However, this explosive state was very short, so short that it only lasted for a few dozen breaths. It was just enough for Guy to barely use the 2 sets of moves after opening the Gate of Death. After letting out a long sigh, Hyojin removed the state of the 8 inner hidden gates. At this time, he could proudly announce that he had conquered the 8 inner hidden gates and mastered all the mysteries of the 8 inner hidden gate. And as he gained a deeper understanding and complete control of the 8 inner hidden gates, he also realized that the 8 inner hidden gates, like other techniques, also had certain limitations. This limitation was not the technique itself, but the fragile human body. As long as the ninja's life level, body structure, and so on did not undergo a qualitative change, then the power of the 8 inner hidden gates would have a theoretical upper limit, and this upper limit was almost the 6th-path level. Simply put, even if a genin and chunin could open the Gate of Death, the power that they could erupt with wasn't as terrifying as one might imagine. Dai was a good example. Although he killed 4 of the 7 swordsmen of the Mist Village in one battle, and almost eliminated the 7 swordsmen of the Mist Village in one battle. But this battle obviously didn't reach the description of 10 times the power of the 5 Kage. Because the 7 swordsmen of the Mist Village are only 7 elite jonin, and they are more reliant on their ninjutsu, and they belong to the type of elite jonin. Therefore, Mat Dajin, who has opened the Gate of Death, has obtained 10 times the power of the 5 Kage. Even if it is only for a short moment, none of the 7 will be able to survive, and none will be able to escape. Therefore, only a jonin who reached the rank of jonin and opened the Gate of Death, could the potential of the 8 inner hidden gates be fully displayed. In other words, at least reaching the strength of a jonin, it was possible to display the theoretical limit of the output of the 8 inner hidden gates and obtain 10 times the power of the 5 Kage in an instant. According to Hyojin's speculation, Guy's basic strength had reached the level of a jonin, and after opening the Gate of Death, his chakra would probably increase by 100 times or even more. This would allow Guy, who was at the rank of jonin, to cross the vague boundaries of the Kage and Super Kage levels and instantly obtain the terrifying power of the 6th path level. If one's strength was higher, such as reaching the Kage level, the effect of opening the Gate of Death would not be as significant as that of a jonin. Because the essence of the 8 inner hidden gates was to break the shackles of the human body and push the potential of the body to the peak in an instant. At the cost of burning one's life, attacking the organs, meridians, and bones, one could display the full power of the body. As for the Kage level experts, they more or less knew some techniques to develop the body's potential. For example, the previous generations of Lei Ying, Their development of the body's potential was not much worse than the ninjas who practiced the 8 inner hidden gate. Therefore, the 8 inner hidden gates, which was a technique that released all the body's potential, did not have such an exaggerated effect on them. If a jonin who did not explore the limit of the body's potential, after opening the gate of death, his chakra amount would skyrocket by 100 times, then for the Kage level experts who had used other methods to explore part of the body's potential, after opening the gate of death, their chakra amount might only increase by 50 times, from the Kage level to the 6th path level. For the super Kage level experts like Hyojin, who had explored their potential very deeply, the limit of the potential that they could explore was not much. Therefore, after opening the gate of death, their chakra amount might only increase by 20 times, and they would be able to reach the 6th path level more smoothly than others. In short, as long as there was no fundamental change in the level of life, although there was a difference in the upper limit of the human body's potential, the limit would be the 6th path level. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1184. After conquering the 8 inner hidden gates, Hyojin had almost finished preparing for the ceremony, so in order to calm down and relieve the accumulated pressure, he prepared a sumptuous meal, and then called his 2 disciples, Naruto and Ningxi, as well as Ziyuan, who could only rely on him in Mai, to his home. Unexpectedly, Naruto also called Sakura and Sasuke, Ningxi brought Xiaoli and Tian, and Ziyuan called Yakumo and Sakai, who were in the same team. Thinking that it was already like this, Hyojin simply called Hinata's and Shikamaru's classes over. So, Mai's 12 roaches, now Mai's 15 roaches gathered in Hyojin's home, and their instructor Jonin also heard the news and came to join in the fun. Looking at the big house full of guests, Hyojin's mouth twitched, and he said, "What is this, eating from the rich?" You put her hand on her forehead. "Oh no, I didn't expect so many guests to come, the food and drinks prepared are not enough." Hyojin said helplessly, "Let Gale and the others go to the restaurant to buy some ingredients." You glanced at Hyojin and asked in a low voice, "Then, how much?" Hyojin waved his hand. "Let these guys eat enough, it's just a meal, can't I, the great Naruto, afford it? How can I lose face like this?" Yes. You nodded. Unlike Hyojin and you who hid in the kitchen and discussed in a low voice to buy ingredients, the living room at the moment was unusually lively. Since graduating from the ninja school, Naruto's classmates rarely got together, so this time Naruto's dinner was a rare opportunity for them. Naturally, everyone was full of conversation. Just like the students who graduated from the same year, the several mentors haven't had a meal together for a long time. Kakashi, Kai, Asuma, Red, and Mute formed their own little circle, drinking and talking about the situation of their respective classes. Glancing at the elated Naruto and Sasuke, who was pretending to be cool, Asuma smiled at Kakashi and said, "It must be a lot of pressure to guide these 2 kids, right?" Kakashi sighed. "They are indeed troublesome fellows." Red smiled. "Be content. With such an outstanding disciple, what else can you be dissatisfied with?" Mute echoed, "Yes, now Naruto and Sasuke have become famous in the village. In terms of strength, I'm afraid they are no less than us Jonin." Sasuke's fame in the village came from his sneak attack on the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato, during the last war. Although the sneak attack didn't succeed, but a 13 or 14-year-old boy dared to attack a strong enemy that even the 5 Kage couldn't defeat. This in itself is commendable. And Naruto became famous because he defeated Sasuke. Kai, who has been teaching Naruto in place of Kakashi these days, said seriously, "Their future achievements will be above us." Kakashi gently nodded. "Well, they are the future of the village." At this time, Asuma said to Kai, "Your subordinates Ningxi and Xiaoli are also not bad." Kai shook his head slightly and lowered his voice. "Ningxi is definitely a genius, but it's a pity that Naruto and Sasuke are too dazzling, so his light is completely overshadowed. As for Xiaoli, that child is like me, a little stupid, but as long as he is willing to work hard, he will definitely become an indomitable ninja in the future. Red sighed softly. Hinata, Ya, and Shino are actually very good, but it's a pity that there are too many monsters in their generation. Mute focused on eating and didn't interrupt. Her subordinates, Ziyuan, Yakumo, and Sajui, also have great potential, especially Ziyuan and Yakumo. Their potential is so terrible that even she, as a jonin, is secretly speechless. But at the same time, these two also have very obvious flaws. Ziyuan is obviously spoiled by Belle, and she is the real Miko of the Land of Demons, the actual leader of the Land of Demons. Yakumo, because of her weak physique, although she awakened the Kurama family's Kekiai limit, her performance is not stable, and she can't fight for a long time. As a ninja, her advantages and disadvantages are too prominent. Asma continued Red's words and said with a smile, "In fact, there are also a lot of monsters in our generation. Don't forget, Kuroto has already become Naruto, and Kakashi is now Naruto's agent." Kai nodded, "Yeah." After listening to Asma's words, Kakashi thought of Obsidian again, and his expression suddenly became a bit gloomy. Speaking of monsters, Obsidian, who used the Akatsuki to stir up trouble, can obviously be counted as a monster in their generation. In terms of strength, in his opinion, Obsidian is undoubtedly the strongest monster in their generation, stronger than him, the so-called genius, and Hyojin who became the fifth Naruto. If I was the one who died, the shinobi world might be more stable than it is now, and Lin might be able to survive. Sometimes he even thought that if Obsidian didn't go astray, or if he was the one who died in the Battle of the Kamubi Bridge, then Sensei 4 generations Naruto might not have died, and the catastrophe that the village suffered after that might have been avoided. At this time, Hyojin and Yu brought the expensive ingredients that they had just bought from the restaurant to the hall. Looking at the table full of delicious food, all the students cheered, and among them, the happiest were Naruto and Ding Ci. The two of them even competed with each other, as if they were competing to see who could eat more. Looking at the two of them cleaning the food on the table, Hyojin was stunned for a moment. "Eat slowly, don't choke." Naruto, who was wolfing down the food, said with a lisp, "Sensei, I'm fine." Shikamaru laughed and said, "Naruto-sama, this is just a small matter for Ding Ci. Don't worry, he won't choke." "Am I worried that they will choke?" Hyojin thought to himself, then turned back to the kitchen, gritted his teeth, and ordered Yu, "Tell Gale and the others to buy more ingredients." Yu covered her mouth and smiled, then asked curiously, "Kuroto, why did you suddenly invite everyone over for a meal today? Are you going to announce something?" Hyojin said casually, "It's just a normal meal." He really just wanted to meet up with his disciples before the ceremony. On one hand, he wanted to explain some things, and on the other hand, he wanted to relieve his pressure and adjust his mentality for the ceremony of breaking through the bloodline seizing net. At this time, Ziyuan's shrill scream suddenly came from the living room. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you all. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.